Good evening and welcome to the October 7th meeting of the governing body. I call this meeting to order. If you will give your attention to Councilwoman Hofer, who will provide the invocation, stand as you are able and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Tonight, our invocation is going to be by Randy Lusecki. Of course. Okay, tonight our speaker for the invocation is Randy Lusecki. He is retired from the Central Park Christian Church after 17 years of dedicated ministry. He has also served as an intake chaplain with the Department of Corrections. Currently, he continues his pastoral work as the in-house chaplain at Presbyterian Manor and serves as an on-call chaplain for the Topeka Police Department. Randy, take it away.
Thank you. Mayor, City Council, thank you for this privilege. Pray with me, please. Father in heaven, we do bow before you. We submit you and subject you to our service, and I pray that your protection would be upon us, Father. And I pray, Father, the protection on each one of our leaders here in the city and for all of those who watch out for us each and every day and stand guard to keep us safe, to save our lives, and to bring us another day that we can live in freedom. I just ask that you would bless this meeting and anoint each one with your love and your precious, precious care for each and every one of us. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on with the agenda. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Padilla.
Here.
Council members Hiller. Here. Valdivia Acala.
Here.
Ortiz. Here. Banks.
Here.
Kell.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Dobler. Duncan.
Here.
Hofer.
Here.
All right, we have 9 present.
Okay, thank you. Move on to appointments. Madam Clerk.
A is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Eli May to the Board of Building and Fire Appeals for a term ending October 7, 2027. And B is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Valerie Peckham to the Topeka Shawnee County Public Library Board of Trustees to fill an unexpired term ending April 30, 2029.
Okay, you've heard the appointments as read. Is there a motion from the body? Motion to approve by Councilwoman Ortiz.
Second.
Second by Councilman Banks. I think the board's ready. Madam Clerk? Maybe not.
There, okay.
Okay, we're ready to vote.
Yep. Okay, Councilmember Banks. Not working. There it goes. Okay, we have 8 yes. The mayor does not vote on this. The motion carries.
Okay. Move on to present, oh, no, before we do that, Eli May is present, and Valerie Peckham is not, but Eli, if you would stand so we can acknowledge your presence, and thank you for your service. Thank you, sir. Okay. Madam Clerk, presentations.
We have a presentation on the City of Topeka Economic, Social, Demographic Site Dashboards.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. This evening, we will have a quick presentation on some of the things our TSG group is doing. I would like to point out that one of the things that we've heard from this governing body has been able to really have community profiles down to the council district level. And so I was very excited for Travis and the group to take this on, and we're excited to share this with you this evening. Thank you.
Evening, Council. Evening, City Manager, Deputy Manager. Mr. Mayor, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. My name is Travis Lathrop. I'm the manager for the city's Mapping and GIS Department. We are responsible for mapping the real-world location of over 400 different types of city-owned assets. And while we spend a majority of our time updating our database to reflect edits that have taken place in the field, I think our true strength lies in our storytelling capabilities. If I might read from our mission statement. To efficiently and effectively provide geospatial information and applications. These applications and data sets should aid city employees and the public in order to enhance city operations, improve decision-making, and provide enhanced public services. And that's why I'm here tonight. My team has built a suite of tools that are going to help tell some compelling stories, not only about your council district, the city as a whole, and the NIAs that are relative to your council district. You're going to have a website that each of you will be able to go into for your dedicated council district and get information on your education rate, per capita income, population trends, mortgage and housing information, economic development information, at-risk community information, and the distribution of what actually makes up the market of your piece of geography. Now, where did this data get sourced from? I know that's going to be a big question. So this is all sourced straight from the U.S. government. We pay a certain amount to our vendor each year to have access to the data. And now that we have access to the data, these are the kind of stories that we can tell. So I'll run through where our data is sourced, because I'm sure the question will come up as the presentation is being given. So demographic and socioeconomic estimates are coming from the U.S. Census Bureau and the American Community Survey. Consumer spending information is coming from consumer expenditure surveys and the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The market potential information is provided by the Global Market Research Company, and the business locations and business summary data in these dashboards is provided by a combination of Esri and Infogroup and SafeGraph. So that's kind of the providers of the data that I'm about to walk you through. So without hesitation, let's get into it. These maps and data, as of today, are currently public-facing, and you can get to them by just going out to the city website. But you guys have the deck here, and we've got hyperlinks that'll take you straight to the pages. All right. So this is going to be the home page for all the data. You can see that there is a application built for each of the council members to go in and look at. For the demo and walking the council through the information here, I'm going to go to Council District 6, and we'll pick on Council District 6 for a minute. When you launch the dashboard, there's going to be a lot of information in front of you. First thing I do before I get into the weeds and talk about the data is talk about how we actually navigate this information, because there's a lot of stuff that's going to be here in front of us. I think the first thing I'd like you to pay attention to is the top right corner. You see that there's an option to select your boundary from the list. So for Council District 6, there are 3 boundaries available. There's the City of Topeka boundary. If I click on that, you notice that the map in the bottom right-hand corner, you can now see that piece of geography. The data on the left hand is all refreshed to reflect the City of Topeka numbers. But what I'm going to do now is jump to Council District 6 and just take a look at those numbers for Council District 6. And how would I do that? I'm just going to click Council District 6 in the top right-hand corner. Map's going to redraw, zoom in tight on the piece of geography, and all the numbers on the left are going to refresh. You'll also notice below Council District 6 is the NIA for Valley Park. It's the only NIA that happens to intersect Council District 6. If you wanted to get information about Valley Park, again, you would simply click on it. Map's going to refresh. The data on the left's going to redraw. So that's kind of how you navigate the pages. I'm going to go back to the City of Topeka data set, so we're looking at those numbers as a whole. So let's take a look at the stuff that's over on the left. Population of Topeka. This data is all based on 2024 statistics. So these numbers won't change. We won't have an opportunity to refresh this until next year. But on the first landing page, you can see for the population trends, we get a breakout population by generation. You get an education breakdown. And if you hover your mouse over any of these icons, for the most part, you've got an extra option there, which will allow you to explore the statistics for more information. And let's take a look at that real quick. So I want to benchmark and take a look at some of the high school graduate information numbers. Sorry. That's not where I was going. I want to show you something, a really compelling story on how you can kind of use this tool to pull some data out of it. And we're just going to look at this first page real quick. So if we look at the city of Topeka as a whole, there's going to be two things I want to keep an eye on. Number one is going to be the high school graduation rate, which is 32% right here. And the per capita income for the city of Topeka as a whole is $33,000. I want you to pay attention to these numbers and see how they change when I change the geography. I'm going to change the geography first to the Council District 6 so we can baseline that NIA against Council District 6. So Council District 6 shows that we've got 26% of high school graduates with a median income of $37,000. So that's for Council District 6. Now remember that, 26 and 37. If we were to go and look at the NIA, you're going to see that that high school graduation number rate has increased, but the per capita income has dropped by about $5,000. So there's lots of different stories that you can glean and tell as you navigate through the different data sets. We've just looked at this front page. I've got 5 pages of data for each piece of geography. So this is just the first page, so we're going to talk about navigation. How do I get to the subsequent data sets? Top right-hand corner, we've got this page 1 drop down. This is how you would navigate through the pages. The second page is going to be housing trends. This is going to give you trending information on the housing distribution in each of these pieces of geography. Page 3 is going to provide you economic development profile. Where is your labor force distributed across the industry in this piece of geography? What's my unemployment rate look like? How are people getting to work? Page 4 is going to be at-risk population. So this kind of gives you some really good insight to the vulnerable parts of the city. Something that I thought that was interesting, if you look here at this facility portion, you can see that Council District 6 only has 2 fueling centers. If I were going to look at NIA for Valley Park, you can see that one of those fueling centers is in this NIA. I've got to jump to page 5, please, page 4. You can see that one of those fueling centers is in that NIA, but that NIA doesn't have any of these other facility types that are in it. So this should help provide some visibility to the things that exist in the geography that we are here to govern. The last page that I want to take a look at is page 5. I think this is one of my favorite pages because it kind of gives you a breakdown of everything that exists in this geography from a market perspective. So this is what it looks like. What's in my community? You can see in Council District 6, I've got 19 different healthcare entities. Got 47 different education entities, got 2 libraries. Well, what are those libraries, or who are those folks? All you have to do is click on this, and you'll get a breakdown of who the entities are that are making up those statistics. Now, I will say this, the restaurant data is a little suspect. It is derived from crowdsourced information from applications. And when I was just testing this out, it came back and told me that there were 51 pizzerias in city of Topeka. When I went and looked at the list, you could see that there was historical pizzerias on there that hadn't been removed yet. So I'm really confident, probably in the upper 90 percentile range, about anything related to economic development, population trends, education. That's the only number that I've ever kind of looked at sideways, and that was from a restaurant location list. So that's the information that I've got for you tonight. Let's see. We've navigated. There's some baselining stuff in here. I think that's going to be really valuable for you guys. Let's see. Baselining. Education. Okay. High school graduates. I'm going to click on the high school graduates, and this is going to give me, let me reset this and go back to the city of Topeka as a whole. So again, I've clicked the city of Topeka in the top right-hand corner. I'm going now to look at high school graduation rates. This chart breaks it down for me at the different grade levels, but what I brought this chart up to show you is you can baseline the city of Topeka numbers against Shawnee County numbers as well as national numbers. And how do you do that? Well, this chart, if you notice, you just hover your mouse on top of the chart and you can see, hey, high school, no diploma. This area for City of Topeka is 5%. How does that benchmark against Shawnee County as a whole? Well, Shawnee County as a whole has a 4.6% of high schools, graduates, or high school with no diploma. But where it gets even more interesting is you can see that the yellow chart represents the City of Topeka numbers. The line chart represents what you're wanting to benchmark against. And right now, I'm telling it to benchmark against Shawnee County. Down here in the right-hand corner, if I drop that and change it to United States, you can see that that number that I'm comparing against changes. So you can get some benchmarking capabilities in here against the county as well as the United States as a whole. I know that I've thrown a ton of information at you, and I can't go through each of the different widgets as time doesn't allow for that, but I'm more than willing to meet with anybody as you need, if you need some some fine-tuning as we go through this. But I'd be happy to work with you folks on that. And I know I threw a lot at you, so I'm sure you've got some questions, and I'm here for them if you got them. Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to see, Deputy Mayor's first one up. Deputy Mayor?
I absolutely geek out on GSI. I did it back in the Navy and absolutely love it. There's so much information you can put into it and so much information you can gather out of it. How much are we using local info rather than just the federal info to make up some of our maps and some of our data sets that we can make out of this?
So this is all government source data. This is nothing that the City of Topeka has generated themselves. We pay for this access to this data. It's called business analyst, right? So it does not incorporate any of our own data. One of the negatives about it is we don't have the data on-prem. It like lives in the cloud. We just have access to call to it. So we can't massage the data or add data to it. It is what it is. So that's kind of where the data resides and how it's generated.
Okay, so that kind of answers some of my questions on other stuff, because me adding photos, maybe making the map view go to an aerial view rather than just this, a map view. Is there any way we can add more breakdowns to each district? Because I'm a district that has all 3 501 high schools in it. I have some of the highest socioeconomic status and some of the lowest socioeconomic status all in my district. So my numbers can be very skewed by which side of which road you're on. So I'd like to almost be able to see where I could break it down to west of Burlingame or west of Topeka Boulevard, east of there, and see those numbers, because that's going to give me more of a true set of what my district shows.
So the way this data works and the way the dashboards are driven is we basically carve out the geography. We push it against the data set and extract what we need for that piece of geography. So if you wanted some carved out sections for your district, it'd be just as easy as you drawing them on a map for us digitizing them, adding them into the data set, refreshing the maps. So yeah, if you want custom geography added to any of these stories, it's easy to do.
Yeah, because I'd like to, almost have break down the school boundaries or middle school boundaries, those type of things. I think you get a lot more information based off of certain areas.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I wish we had a little bit more to play with on that, because like I said, I've been able to, back in the day, this is 20 years ago, add photos to it so you could go to a specific area, click on that little hyperlink that's there and go to photos, add that local info so we can see where the hot spots and crimes or accidents or anything going on. That it'd be nice to have that info that I think really more affects us on their day-to-day, where this is great information. And I'm not trying to knock anything you did, because I know how hard it can be to generate this stuff. But it'd be nice to have a little bit more localized info and data sets and things like that in there.
So let's do this. Let's start with me giving you a map of your district, and you draw on the boundaries that you want. I can get you that, and then we can have some follow-up conversations about the other things, because I don't think they're probably best suited for this, like an aerial map to click to where you're at. But I can definitely have those conversations with you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Travis, this is awesome.
Thank you.
What would be helpful to me is streets in my area, in my district. where they're located at,
The what?
streets. So every 10 years, they change the boundaries. So my district butts up against, I think, 6 districts, 5 districts.
And your district again is,
I'm sorry, I'm in District 3.
let's just go ahead and pull it up, because we do have streets on there in the maps.
And so every 10 years it changes, and so I always have to try to figure out that portion, whether it's in District 6 that's giving me a little bit, Oakland, District 1, District 5, District 4. And so I would just like to know, that would be helpful if I could like search a street, if it would
Sure.
show that.
Sure. So the data that we get is based on pieces of geography, right? Think of a polygon. Might be a challenge, but I'll see what we can do. I'll work on getting you something, all right?
Well, like I inherited, I think it's 3.5 streets over in Valley Park. And so, because I got pushed further west. And so, it would just be nice to see, you know, what streets that they are, so I know.
I think we get it in
Then what I gotta do is figure out, go to the election office and figure out where they put me, blah, 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 blah.
Well, that's no good. We can easily do that, so I'll get with you probably offline to make sure we've got what you're looking for incorporated. But yes, we could definitely add a searching function by street.
And then what about parks in districts? Do you have that?
Well, there shouldn't be any socioeconomic information available about a park, right? There's not going to be anybody living there or businesses
Well,
run
they
there.
might live there.
Well, I mean, it's probably not going to, we know that they're living there, but the parks are called out on the map, but we didn't ask for any of the information to get kicked back to us. So if you look on the map, here's your Dormwood Park. So you can see them on the map and kind of see where they fall relative to what you're looking at, but we don't have them carved out. But if you want us to do that, we can definitely take a stab.
But we can find them on the map, even though they're not in our district?
Yes, ma'am.
I guess that would be okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay.
And what we'll probably do is I'll see if we can get a little search bar added to this map right here, so you could just type in your street, map would redraw to right where you're interested and get the information you need.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Valdivia Acala.
Thank you. Travis, when you first showed this to me, my eyes kind of were just overwhelmed with all the information.
Yes, ma'am.
But I do know for sure that there's still some talking we need to do about a couple of things like we had at the beginning, so I'll be making an appointment with you.
Fair enough.
Thank you so much for your hard work.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Duncan.
Yeah, I think this is great. It's obviously a lot more information at our fingertips
Yeah.
than we've had previously. I guess a couple questions. How close is this to being, it's never done, I understand that. But I mean, is this almost it, like it's ready to be used?
Yep, this is published currently on the website, so you can go out
that
to
was my next
topeka.org and
question.
get
This
it.
is- This is something the public can also access
Yes,
to,
sir.
right? It's not just for internal use.
That is correct.
Okay.
So right now, with this presentation, we're probably done with this, exception of the modifications that we're going to go back and see if we can address. But I will just throw this out there. I've provided you 5 pages worth of data about any piece of geography. I had the option to give you 30 pages of data. So we're just kind of scratching the surface on what I can do as far as giving you information about the pieces of geography that make up the city. Thought we'd start small, see how this was leveraged, and then I can give you guys maybe a list of, what would you like to see next time, and we could take that next deep dive then. But yeah, there's more opportunities to leverage this data than what we've got here.
And on the streets, I know we have a street map.
We've got several
I
of
just
them out
don't
there,
think
yeah.
they're broken down by districts, but I can't remember.
So we've got a district map that has streets in it, so that's
Right.
how I would approach that cat, right?
Well, my point was between that, if it needs refinement, and this, and then whatever things we want to add, and then the community health map.
Yep,
I mean,
that
being able
changed.
to overlay those 3 things now gives us a lot of information
Yep.
when we're looking at projects and data and talking to the community about
Absolutely.
what's actually specific to our district. This is great, so thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you, good feedback.
Councilman Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate this information, Travis.
Yes, sir.
And I also appreciate you showing me District 6 first. It's great information
Yes,
to
sir.
see. Question, how often do you pull from that cloud?
Every time the map gets pinged.
Okay, all right. So as I was about to ask you, I looked down and I see this tiny little thing that says last update 4 minutes ago.
Yep.
Now, I don't know how it looks on everybody's screen, but on this screen, if this is what an average person is looking at, that is tough to see right there. You see how the bottom left, you have the source where you can actually see
Yes, sir.
the color?
Yes, sir.
Would it be possible to allow when it was last updated to be more visible for the user?
We will check on it, but I don't think it should be too much of a problem. It's just a cosmetic thing, so I'll add it to the list.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
That's a good point. I failed to mention this. On each page, in the bottom left-hand corner, there's going to be a link to the source data. That's what's driving this page, so just wanted to point that out.
That it? Okay. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two things. Kudos and a couple questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Kudos first.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
nice to see you here.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know what everybody else is hearing, but I assume it's the same thing. The staff loves you. They appreciate you. They
gosh.
think you
Yeah.
walk on water
I
and also
appreciate that.
present
Thank
well.
you. Thank you so much.
So it's fun to see
Well,
at a time when we're all eager for this data and
Thank you. Thank
to
you.
have
Thank you.
somebody that can run it. My questions have to do with clarification a little bit. Like, for instance, when it talks about how many high school graduates there are, is that compared to the whole population in the district?
Yes, ma'am. It would be against
So for instance, we would want to kind of look at how many kids there are and how many seniors there are to kind of put that in proportion, right?
Yes, you would. I think page 2 would probably, there's a page in here that gives you age breakdown. So I think that would probably be the page, maybe it's this page. But yes,
Because anybody under 15 probably isn't a high school graduate yet. You'd be talking about the adults. Just checking.
yeah, it doesn't break it out like that, but let me see if we can add that as well, so, we'll add it to the list.
I think there'll be all sorts of things, like, I think of the income as well when you showed Valley Park compared to the city. If you've got more retirees, for instance, they might be doing just fine. It just has to do with whether they're working or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe, right?
Absolutely.
Again, age and occupation. Okay. And is there going to be, in the future, a historical comparison? I'm thinking about how much we talk about what our population is and how many households we have. Because when I looked at your numbers, there'd been discussion that we've lost 2,000 people. And it also looked to me like we correspondingly lost 2,000 households. Because it used to be that we had about 56,000 households when I was paying much attention. And so that's interesting.
So, yeah, on
Catch
that.
every once in a while
I'm sorry,
anyway.
ma'am. Sorry for overspeaking you, but
That's
yes,
right.
that front page, we've got 4 years' worth of data baked into this, so you can kind of start to see that population trend, like just you said.
Okay.
We dropped from 56 to 54, and you can kind of see that in the bar chart, or the graph in the lower left on page 1.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Further questions? Travis, thank you very much for the
Hey,
presentation.
thank you all for your time. Quick
Very
shout out to my
impressive.
team. I couldn't do it without them, so thank you all.
Thank you. Move to agenda item 4, Madam Clerk.
A is an ordinance introduced by Councilmember Karen Hiller designating a portion of the Crosby parking garage as temporarily exempt from the provisions of KSA 41719D and TMC 915020E. B is approval of a Public Works Department contract for professional services between the City of Topeka and Bureau Vistas Technical Assessments LLC in an amount not to exceed $153,023. C are minutes of the regular meeting of September 16, 2025, and there are no applications.
Okay. We've heard the consent agenda is read. Is there a motion from the body? Need a motion to approve by Councilman Miller, second by Councilman Duncan. We're ready to vote.
Okay, we have 9 yes, the motion carries.
you. Move on to action items. 5A, Madam Clerk.
A is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez, amending the district map referred to made a part of the zoning ordinances by Section 1850-050 of the Topeka Municipal Code by providing for certain changes in zoning on .52 acres of property located at 625 Southwest Polk from O&I2 Office and Institutional District to M3 Multiple Family Dwelling District.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the governing body, Dan Warner, our Planning Division Director, will lead us through this item.
City Manager, Mayor, governing body, nice to see you again. So just a refresher on this case. So this proposal was submitted by the property owner to rezone the property from O&I2 Office and Institutional to M3 Multiple Family District. So again, the application was for M3 Multiple Family. The site is about .52 acres located at 625 Southwest Polk. The previous use was a church. It's been vacant since approximately 2003. And again, the proposed use is multifamily residential. The item was submitted in May. It's had 2 public hearings. With consideration by the Planning Commission at their June and August meetings, and it was the August meeting that the Planning Commission recommended approval of M3 zoning. Little quick review of the zoning in the area. So there's C4 zoning, which is our highest commercial zoning, to the north along 6th Avenue. There's various multifamily zoning districts throughout the area south of 6th Street, including M3 to the east of this property and M3 to the south of the property. The future land use plan, the existing future land use plan and the Old Town neighborhood plan designates the area for medium density residential. Applicant held a neighborhood information meeting. Planning Commission considered the item, recommended approval. Staff recommends approval as well. So as was noted last time when the governing body considered this item, staff was asked to also evaluate M2 zoning. M2 is consistent with the existing neighborhood plan and also with the golden factors, and would also be appropriate if a motion was made to approve with M2. With that, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
Okay. Have any questions for Dan? Councilwoman Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, and thanks, Dan, for the work on this. Just so everybody's got numbers, I absolutely can't support M3, and I think everybody knows that, to have 40 units on there, or even 20, and 160 feet height limit is a little out of whack for that neighborhood. M2, based on what that parcel is just a little over half acre. Apparently, we haven't had, the developer is not interested in more than 12 units on there. Staff has said you probably wouldn't allow any more than that, maybe right at that number, based on the ability to get the parking in on that site. If you could respond to that. M1A is what the neighborhood was floating. That one was a little less clear to me. Apparently, it couldn't go more than 4 plexes. And then there was something about 4,500 square feet for each unit or for each structure. Could you help with how many units could be built on that site?
Councilwoman, sure. I will note that staff hasn't reviewed M1A or M1 to this point, but just some basic information about M1A is that you can go up to a 4-plex on M1A. We revised our density and dimensional standards. You might remember this, it was potentially earlier this year. We made it a little easier to develop property within Topeka. We had some kind of outsized lot size requirements and setback requirements. So on the fly here, I mean, I would believe the lot is at least big enough to support a fourplex, if that's what the question is. They still have to park it and, you know, meet setbacks and those sorts of things, so, but again, we haven't evaluated that yet, Councilwoman.
I was sure it would take a 4. The question was whether that zoning would allow it to go to 6 or 8.
M1A, let me just make sure. Yeah, M1A stops at 3 and 4 unit, so triplexes and quadplexes, that's where it stops.
M2 would allow,
Multifamily structures, larger than that.
but likely not more than 2-story.
So the height limit, you mean for M2?
Yes, sir.
So 50 feet, I think you could probably get 3 stories within. I don't think it's limited to 2 stories on M2. But you also are limited by the size of the property and how you park and setbacks, and so you still have to meet other things, you know, within the development parameters.
Kind of know what, no matter what, you all are still at that there probably couldn't be more than 12 units even if somebody proposed it.
I believe that's what we've come to.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor?
I'm just a little confused, I think, for the simple fact of, didn't we discuss this matter like 2-3 weeks ago? And the consensus was that M3 wasn't really what we were looking at, and the property owner was available for the idea of thinking of M2, but now it's come back as M3 again.
So it's come back with the original application. That's what we're reviewing. It's incumbent on the governing body to make a motion to go one way or another. So we just brought back the original application.
Before we vote, this particular item does require revelation of any ex parte communication. So prior to proceeding with the vote, each member of the governing body who has engaged in ex parte communication with any individual, either in favor of or against the matter being considered, must state that the communication occurred and indicate that even in light of having engaged in the communication, they were able to fairly, objectively, and impartially consider the measure based only upon the evidence provided on the record. The record includes the Planning Commission minutes, the staff report, and its attachments, the public comments made during the Planning Commission hearing, and similar relevant information related to the matter. So now I ask the governing body, are there any ex parte communications to bring forward? Councilwoman Hiller?
Both sides, yes, and I think I'll do my best to vote fairly on the matter.
Okay. Councilwoman Valdivia-Acala?
Both sides, and I'm impartial to make a decision.
Okay. Councilwoman Ortiz?
Yes, I've heard from opponents and proponents, and I can fairly and be objectively to make a decision.
Okay. Councilman Miller?
I also heard from opponents and proponents, and I will be fairly judging this.
Okay. Councilman Banks?
Mayor, I've talked to, had phone calls both ways, so I can vote impartially.
Deputy Mayor?
Same, both sides, and I feel like I can be impartial on this.
Okay.
Same here, Mayor.
Okay. Michelle, you were the only one that didn't get any calls.
Busy by talking.
Okay. Well, having met that requirement now, the voting options are to, 1, approve the planning commission's recommendation, and that's the M3.
Correct.
Reject or amend the planning commission's recommendation, or remand back to the planning commission by this governing body. So is there a motion to be made by a council member?
Move to amend to M2.
Okay, we have a motion to amend to M2. Is there a second? Okay, seeing none, the motion fails. Again, 1, to approve the planning commission's recommendation, reject or amend the planning commission's recommendation, or to remand back to the planning commission. Is there another motion from this body? Councilwoman Hiller.
I will second Deputy Mayor Kell's motion for M2.
Oh, okay.
I can.
A little slow coming in, but thank you.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend to M2 by Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councilwoman Hiller. Okay, so we're voting on the amendment to amend.
Correct. This first vote would be a vote to approve the amendment of the recommendation itself. And then if that passes, you will have a second vote to determine whether or not you actually
Correct.
pass the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. So, Madam Clerk, we're ready to vote on the amendment only.
This requires 7 minutes, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Okay, we have 7 yes. The motion carries with Council Members Banks and Mayor Padilla voting no.
Okay, so we voted on the amendment.
So the second vote now would be to vote to approve the recommendation as amended.
To M2.
To M2, correct.
Correct. Everybody understand the vote?
Hold on just a second here.
Point of clarification.
Sure.
How many votes will this require?
This will also require 7.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Okay, we're ready to vote.
okay. And I'm sorry, who made the motion and seconded on that?
A motion to
Approve as
amend.
amended?
Oh, yeah, we should have had a second. I'm sorry. We did?
We did.
We did
And
have a
then-
second. That was,
As a point of order, that was the motion to amend. You now need a motion on the floor to approve
for approval.
the item as amended to M2.
right.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. My apologies. Yes.
Move to approve as amended.
Okay. Motion to approve as amended, second by Councilwoman Hiller. Now we're ready to vote.
Correct. Yep. Okay, we have 7 yes, the motion carries. We have with 1 Councilmember Duncan voting no and Councilmember Banks abstaining. The motion carries.
Okay. Thank you for your votes. Move to action item 5B, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, here we go. Okay, we're on B. Okay, B is a resolution introduced by the Public Infrastructure Committee comprised of council members Sylvia Ortiz, David Banks, and Neil Dobler, recommending approval of project number 281255, Phase 4, regarding the River Weir Crest Cap installation project as further described in Exhibit A.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body, Nicole Malat, our Deputy Director of Utilities will lead us to this item.
Nicole?
Good evening.
This is a resolution to approve a project budget exceeding $250,000 for the installation of a Weir Crest cap. The water treatment plant intake pumps experience cavitation when water surface elevations of the Kansas River are low and demand is higher. This has resulted in increased maintenance, especially during winter months, due to the low water levels and ice formation at the intake pumps. This project will address water levels while maintaining the public safety improvements implemented through a previous project with the installation of a concrete crest cap adjacent to the weir. The project budget is $800,000 and will be cash funded. The project is slated to begin this winter and be completed prior to the end of March 2026. And with that, I would ask for your approval and available for questions.
Any questions for Nicole? Seeing none, is there a motion from the body? Motion to approve by Councilwoman Hiller. I'll second that motion. Okay. Late comer. Okay, second by Deputy Mayor.
Okay.
Okay, you ready to vote?
Okay, we have 9 yes. The motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to action item 5C. Madam Clerk.
C is a resolution introduced by the Public Infrastructure Committee comprised of Councilmembers Sylvia Ortiz, David Banks, and Neil Dobler, recommending approval of project number 291150 Phase 2 for replacement of the Ferric Chloride tank system of the Oakland wastewater treatment plant as further described in Exhibit A.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body, Nicole Malat, our Deputy Director of Utilities, will lead us to this item.
Again, Nicole.
Hello again.
Hello.
This is another resolution to approve a project budget exceeding $250,000. This one for the installation of a new ferric chloride tank system at the Oakland wastewater treatment plant. Work includes demolishing the existing tank, reconfiguring of the piping to allow both tank filling and ferric chloride delivery to the digesters, and relocating of the existing supply pumping system along with its instrumentation and controls. These improvements will enhance system reliability, ensure safer chemical handling, and support more efficient digester operations. The project budget is $473,000 and will also be cash funded, and the project is slated to last approximately 6 months upon notice to proceed. And that, I'd ask for your approval and available for questions.
Questions? Seeing none, I see a motion to approve by Councilman Banks, second by Councilwoman Hofer. Ready to vote?
Where did it go? Oh, we have it. Sorry. We have 9 yes, the motion carries.
Okay. Action item 5D. Madam Clerk.
D is a resolution introduced by the Public Infrastructure Committee comprised of Councilmembers Sylvia Ortiz, David Banks, and Neil Dobler, recommending approval of project numbers 841097 Phase 6, 841099 Phase 8, 501105 Phase 16, and 501107 Phase 9 for street and stormwater improvements on Northwest Menninger Road as further described in Exhibit A.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Steve Groen, our Director of Public Works, will lead us through this item.
Hi, Steve.
Good evening, governing body. This project was brought before you back in March. We put it out for bids, and the bids came in 24% above estimate. So we went back and did a redesign of the structure under Menninger Road, moved some money around to pay for the anticipated cost increase, and we're looking for your support to put it back out for bid. We will hopefully get this approved and get it out for bids for construction yet this winter, which will help with some of the routing of the streams so that we can do it in dry conditions. So we're looking for your support to get this project started again.
Any questions for Steve? Councilwoman Duncan.
Just a quick, more general question. Is that sort of the average-ish increase we're seeing? I know it's not a perfect answer, but I mean 24% or at least double-digit type percentages as costs are going up, or for a lot of these things, or was this unique to this issue?
Councilman, this was unique to this issue, mostly based on the type of structure that was originally designed. It was a cast-in-place structure, and now we're going with a precast pipe.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions for Steve? Okay. A motion to approve by Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala and a second by Councilman Banks. Ready to vote?
Okay, we have 9 yes, the motion carries.
Okay, action item 5E, Madam Clerk.
E is a resolution introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez making certain findings pursuant to the Kansas Reinvestment Housing Incentive District Act with regard to an application submitted by Windward Estates LLC to establish a reinvestment housing incentive district and requesting that the Secretary of Commerce review the resolution and advise the governing body.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Braxton Copley, our Deputy City Manager, will lead us through this item.
Thank you, governing body. This is the first step in the process for the Windward Estates RHID. This simply is the resolution establishing the district boundaries for the RHID. After this, it would have to go to Commerce for their review and approval. After that occurs, then the developer will need to submit a project plan. The city will review that. We will convene the RHID committee. If that committee approves, then we would negotiate a developer agreement. And so this will ultimately, depending on Commerce approval, RHID committee approval, we would then negotiate a development agreement, and we would come back in front of you with a developer agreement and an ordinance approving the project as well as the project plan. So this is the first in what will be a multiple-step, several-month process. So we would simply ask you, given the fact that this is for 20 duplexes, which will result in 40 units of housing at the southwest corner of 45th and California, we would ask for your approval of this resolution to get the process started, and then we will come back to you with more information for your decision later.
Okay, thank you. We have someone signed up on this particular item. Before we ask any questions, Deputy City Manager from the governing body, I'd like to ask Danielle Twemlow to step forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that there's been many improvements to the rewording of the RHID ordinance over the last couple months. Progress has certainly been made. However, I feel that there's really a critical and potentially detrimental gap that still exists. Having the requirements come on the back end for project renderings, concept plans, at the back end, not the front end, is really problematic. Every other city, Manhattan, Overland Park, Lawrence, Wichita, all require, at a minimum, a rendering, if not a full development proposal, before considering RHID support. It's part of the application process. Topeka should hold developers to that same basic standard. Without visuals or structural plans, how can we evaluate whether the proposed homes meet the goals outlined in the housing study, or whether the project is financially viable and responsible? This coming at the back end of things wastes a lot of time. At the very least, we should even have within the ordinance a protection that says that the city can reserve the right to withdraw or amend the support if it doesn't meet these standards. This isn't an unreasonable ask. It's a matter of fiscal responsibility and good governance. Right now, this process is insufficient and incomplete. Before committing, we should require 5 basic elements from any applicant: a concept plan showing general outline density housing types, a project narrative identifying target home income levels and market segments, preliminary cost estimates, financial structure, a but-for financial analysis proving that the project is infeasible without the RHID support, and an estimated timeline for the preparation of a final development plan. These are standard expectations in other cities. They protect both the developer and the taxpayer. Now, in regards to this specific project, it appears that much of the information being presented may have been recycled from 2021, when the subdivision was first proposed for zoning. If that's the case, why aren't those materials included in the current agenda package? I see no documentation confirming that the construction company that owns the current property even intends to actually sell the land to Watson Real Estate Management. Why are these not protections that we're asking for up front? Furthermore, the 2021 Planning Commission packet required that, quote, "No building permit shall be issued until all stormwater management requirements set forth in the Topeka Municipal Code are met." That included approval of a full stormwater management plan and inspection of all stormwater facilities. I would hope that each of you knows whether those requirements were met since 2021, because based on what was submitted publicly, there's no evidence that that had been done. So 4 years later, we still don't know the project's total cost, we don't know a financial plan, or why progress was ever stalled. And finally, for context, the Watson Real Estate Management Company has very strict standards for renting. The project owner publicly stated in a review this year, just a few months ago, that they require prospective tenants to show 3 times the monthly rent and verifiable income, verified through tax returns and W-2s to apply to be a tenant at one of their properties that they rent. Those are very strict financial standards for renters. So I think we can expect the same level of financial documentation accountability when they're requiring or requesting these public financing incentives. So we deserve development that is transparent, consistent, and aligns with our housing and equity goals. Let's not approve projects or incentive ordinances that don't have these fundamental questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any questions for city manager or deputy city manager on this particular issue? Councilman Miller.
Thank you. Thank you, Danielle, for coming up and giving that public comment, because she does bring up a good question. Is there a reason we don't require at least a rendering first?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Is there a reason why we don't at least have a rendering first for the RHID application, just like she was talking about for Manhattan, Overland Park, and the rest?
So, because the current resolution basically lays out the multiple-step process, this is the first step. This is simply to establish that district. The council is not approving a plan. It is not approving an economic incentive. This is simply to do the district. It has to go to Commerce. We have to have their approval. We don't enter into the incentive agreement that requires the $25,000 upfront payment by the developer to cover all of our costs until the Commerce Department has approved it. Because if they don't approve it, obviously those are conditions beyond our control, and we're trying to be fair, reasonable, and developer friendly, as well as trying to address the other being fiscally responsible. Right?
Perfect, thank you. I'm glad you answered the question the way you did. So, say Manhattan, Overland Park, when they have it set up the way they do, with having their rendering and such first, so they're getting paid first, and then if Commerce ends up not approving it, they have to end up sending that money back to the developer?
So it would be a cost of the developer. The city wouldn't bear that. The developer would have to bear that cost. If it doesn't get approved, it doesn't get approved.
And then it's just gone.
And then the developer is out that money.
Okay. Which would make it harder for developers to want to bring developments to our town, correct?
We already face criticism from developers on a daily basis that we are not development friendly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilman Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Braxton, so in our RHID, we will have the accountability before we approve the project. True?
Yes, sir. We will not come to you with a recommendation until we have done the financial analysis to make sure that the project meets the but-for test. and then we will come to you with a project plan. We will come to you with the development agreement, and we will come to you with the ordinance approving the project plan.
Okay. Thank you, Braxton. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Valdivia-Acala?
Yeah, I did see that I was number one on there, but whatever. Thank you, Mayor. I had no idea all of this. I'm going to be voting no, because if there's a way that we can streamline and actually be more efficient as a city with developers, then I would rather go that route. And additionally, I have heard that before, that the city of Topeka is not development friendly, but you certainly wouldn't know it at times with the way that we seem to give away the house at times. But I will be voting no. Thank you, Mayor.
Any further questions, comments? Motion from the body. Any motion from the body? Motion to approve by Councilman Miller. Second by Deputy Mayor Kell. We're ready to vote.
Okay, we have 7 yes with council members Valdivia-Acala and Banks voting no. The motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. Move to action item 5F. Madam Clerk.
F is a resolution of the governing body of the city of Topeka, Kansas, determining that the city is considering establishing a tax increment financing redevelopment district within the city, establishing the date and time of a public hearing on such matter, and providing for the giving of notice of such public hearing for the Sunflower Crossing redevelopment district in the northwest quadrant of Topeka Boulevard and Kansas Avenue.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Braxton Copley, Deputy City Manager, will lead us through this item.
Thank you, governing body. This is also the beginning of another very long process. This one is for a TIF, a tax increment financing. So this resolution is simply going to set the public hearing for the consideration of whether or not to establish the TIF district. That public hearing would be on November 12th. If the governing body decides to establish the TIF district, then there would be yet another meeting after that, and that would be to approve a project plan inside the district. I will tell you that the developer has provided us with the blight study that they had their consultant do. That would certainly give us a colorable argument for establishing the TIF district based on blight, because 7 of the 9 statutory factors for blight are met. Additionally, the developer has shared a project plan with us. We have done a financial analysis of that it does appear to meet the but-for test. This would be for the first phase of the development. This is a 9.12 acre tract of land at the northwest corner of Topeka and Kansas, basically across the street from the new KTA facility. We know that the developer plans in this first phase to do a convenience store, a retail box, and a restaurant. We know that in discussions with the developer, there are plans for subsequent development, including other things, potentially hotel or potentially apartments in later phases, but the first phase would be for the convenience store, retail box, and restaurant. I would respectfully ask for your approval of this resolution, which again is simply to set the public hearing for consideration and establishment of the TIF, the blight study, and the financial analysis are included in the packet. Happy to stand for any questions that you have.
Any questions? Deputy City Manager? I'm going to. I did this last time. Yeah. Just want to ask any questions. Okay, seeing none right now. There is a person again signed up to speak to this matter, Danielle Twemlow.
you. Same situation here, that feel that we need to pause handing out these incentives until we strengthen the ordinances to make sense for our community. So I want to begin to emphasize that we have made some movement on strengthening them, but the TIF districts are ultimately really costly to taxpayers, and we have been listed on this at the state level as having such a failed TIF district that they really don't even recommend them for use of development at the state economic level, and I provided that several months ago as a reference. But I do want to also state within those documents that were submitted that were way more efficient than the previous project, that they did mention also eventually requesting a CID for this project. That is wrapped in there in that language. But the way that we're utilizing those incentive structures, we're missing out on a lot of opportunity, and it's really just beneficial to the developer and not really the community much at all, and we can do better. We can design these incentive policies that not only encourage development, but also protect and uplift people who live here. There are some straightforward safeguards that have been mentioned before. They can be added to these ordinances to make them more fiscally responsible and equitable. We should have local job hiring requirements to ensure that Topekans benefit directly from projects built in their community. City audit and recapture rights, so incentives can be clawed back if a project fails to deliver promised benefits through audits. No displacements of tenants of any kind. Captive districts at 10 to 15 years rather than locking the city into decades-long commitments. Require incremental tax revenue to first fund essential city services, with any remaining funds going to approved development projects. But really, most importantly, this is a way to earmark 10 to 20% of TIF revenue to support affordable housing, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, or community-based programs. This is done in many other cities. It is not a radical idea. They are standard accountability measures that Park City, Kansas, Newton, Kansas, Wyandotte, Kansas, and many other across the country have these protections within their TIF CID ordinances to streamline funding for affordable housing and other public projects. So we should keep those CIDs strictly for affordable housing only, not retail or luxury projects, because these funds are designed to spur development that meets the real community needs, not subsidize profits for developers. That's wrapped up in that language. I know that doesn't have a lot to do with approving this TIF public hearing. I do believe that we should pull back on continuing that until we have improved these ordinances to include some of these protections. And, you know, just from what's publicly available, if we diverted roughly every year about $8 million in property taxes from these tax revenues to developers through these programs, redirecting even a portion of that will help fund and stabilize our reserves and use our affordable housing goals. But even in our own financial analysis by the city for this project directly, I will quote from the financial analysis. It states, "The city is also at risk, however, in this transaction. By granting incentives, it is making an affirmative decision to cause a project to develop at this site that the market itself will not support. Further, it agrees to continue to support the project financially for more than 2 decades. Additionally, each time the city grants incentives to a project, it creates precedent for future projects." This should give us all pause, that we need to be really reevaluating before we move forward on things that are not benefiting our community, but only benefiting these investors. Them playing that we're not friendly is just a pull. So we're not going to have people who can afford to go shop at these places if we don't start investing back in our community. Thank you.
Councilwoman Vadiviakala.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Twemlow, I would ask that you email your public comment, please, to the governing body and to Brenda. And Brenda, I'm asking that you make that part of the public record, the written public comment. I have struggled with TIF. I'm not going to act like I'm an expert on any of it when it comes to economic development, because that is a place that I struggle. However, I have read a number of pros and cons about TIFs. What is being said at this moment about TIFs gives a little bit of possibility in that it can become a creative, possibly an innovative way, since we are struggling with, our debt in the next 2 cycles after the 2026 budget deficits. And since we are trying to solve a lot of problems in addition to development. So I'm going to be looking into this. I'm going to have to study more on it and get myself educated before I can meet whoever of you guys I meet with, and to see about strengthening ordinances. And for now, I will be voting no. Thank you, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor?
This is an area that I think is what this is designed for. We have an area that has had a bar that's been open and closed so many times in the last 20 years that it's literally been stripped down to almost nothing now. Houses that were there are all gone because the rental company was having such issues with those homes that they decided it was easier to tear them down than keep maintaining them. That is going to be a nice little hub, especially from what the discussion we've had before with what convenience store might go in there. That it would be a nice hub coming off the highway right there from between Kansas City and Wichita to attract some people into town. I kind of think this is what it's designed to do, is take an area that's needing something, and it's, to me, it's going to just breathe the growth around it. And if this was some neighborhood or some spot that already had a bunch of buildings there and stuff that we could revitalize, I'd probably be more hesitant to it. But this is an area that's desperately needed something to go there for as long as I've been in Topeka and living in my house, which I drive by this place every single day. So I've been waiting since we first had the discussion about the convenience store for that to come in, just because I think it will be a spot that will be able to hold up for decades in that location. So, thank you, Mr.
Mayor. I see we have a motion to approve by Deputy Mayor and a second by Councilman Miller. And to reiterate, what we're just doing is starting a hearing date for a long process. We're not doing anything other than that at this point. Am I correct?
That is correct. You are not establishing a TIF district, nor are you approving a project plan. You are simply setting a date for a public hearing on November 12th to consider the establishment of a TIF district.
Thank you. So a motion to approve by Deputy Mayor, second by Councilman Miller. I believe we're ready to vote.
Okay, we have 8 yes with Councilmember Valdivia Acala voting no. The motion carries.
Okay. We'll move now to action item 5G. Madam Clerk.
G is a resolution introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez authorizing and adopting the proposed 2026 to 2035 CIP and 2026 to 2028 CIB and approving project budgets.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Josh McInerney, our Budget and Finance Division Director, will lead us to this item. I do want to make mention that we've been made aware of a potential motion to only have discussion this evening with potential action deferred to our next council meeting.
Okay.
Josh.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, governing body. Like the City Manager said, we're circling back kind of on the CIP discussion tonight. We'll do a quick overview of kind of what the CIP is, why we do it, some of the various funding sources. Then we want to get into the broader conversation on the debt service fund because we had a kind of a robust conversation about it 2 weeks ago at the budget, the final budget night, and so how our mill levy relates to property tax collection and where that property tax collection goes in terms of our debt service.
Okay. I want to acknowledge Councilman Duncan. Do you want to address something right now?
Well, City Manager just beat me to it. I will either make the motion or second the motion or be happy to just vote for someone else's. So everyone knows as we have this conversation, my preference, and I think several others, are to vote on this next week so that we can have a discussion today, see if there's anything we all need to follow up on before we take a final vote next week. So it doesn't change anything we're going to talk about or how we're going to talk about this evening, but I wanted everyone to know.
And so everyone also knows we do have someone signed up to speak to this.
Well, I'm not making a motion now. I'm just saying before our conversation
is
over.
Yeah.
I just want to give everyone a heads up.
Okay. Go Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, apologies, I didn't know. So CIP overview, we do a 3-year CIB, so that kind of nails in the projects that we think are coming up, and then we nail in out the next 7 years to where are some of the other items that we out year. Part of the reason we do that is financial analysis, to where we know there's only so much money coming in. We don't want to overextend ourselves and put out on paper more projects than what we can afford. We want to also showcase to the public where we coordinate our assets with streets, utility work, et cetera. And it lets businesses know when we're doing Topeka Boulevard from 15th to 21st, what years those may be occurring. So basically, overall, the CIP is a communication document to the city. Some of the funding sources. So go through 2 sections. So public works primary funding sources are 2 half-cent sales tax, one the city, which is fixing existing streets, alleys, curbs, and gutter. And then a pertinent project example is Topeka Boulevard 21st to 29th. That was primarily a citywide half-cent sales tax project. Then we also have the countywide JADO half-cent sales tax. One that's been talked about at the council is Southwest Huntoon, Gage to Harrison. We get federal funds exchange money from the state of Kansas. Primarily that is programmed to repair our around 101 bridges in the city. And then we also, and we'll get into this later, issue general obligation bonds, and those are anything that isn't covered by the former 3. So a lot of that is traffic signals or any facility improvements throughout our campus at the city. So, and then there's also utilities. Those are also issued debt through revenue bonds, and those revenue bonds, unlike GEO bonds, those revenue bonds are generated by the revenue the utility system generates. And then we also cash fund projects, as you guys approved a little bit ago, through the various charges through water, stormwater, and wastewater. So each one of those is an example that's been worked on in the past, just to give you an idea of what we fund and then what was an asset in real life that we repair with that. So going to the debt service fund. So that's where our general obligation principal and interest payments are paid. So how does money get into the fund to pay that? So property taxes, and you'll see this on the next slide, are the main revenue source for that fund. And then also part of the motor vehicle taxes we collect go there, and then also any special assessments that are paid by property owners go into that fund to pay off the special assessment debt. Now, what are the primary expenses on that? It's the principal and interest payments on our debt service schedule. So that's kind of the income statement side of the debt service fund. Now, just some general information about it is our state, the state cap is 30% of our total assessed valuation. So our total assessed valuation is about 1.6 billion, and our current GEO principal amount is 151 million. Now, we can have a principal balance of up to 30%. Our current percentage as of our last issuance that we issued in late August or September is 9.53%. So we're well below our statutory limit. Now, all of that is also predicated on do we have enough money to pay off future debt. So that's important to note too, but statutorily with the state, we're fine. And then our current audited debt service fund balance at the end of 2024, and it shouldn't change much at the end of 2025, is about 18.5 million. Now, one thing to note, and Councilmember Dobler alluded to it 2 weeks ago, is once money is in this fund per state statute, it can't be transferred out. It can only be used on principal and interest payments. Now, I say that it can only be transferred out once all the debt that is outstanding is retired, but for us, our debt goes until 2041 if we never issued any general obligation debt again. So the likelihood of that coming offline is probably very low. But that's just for context of why we can't just transfer money out. Now, 2 weeks ago, we kind of talked about our former structure of how our mill levy, where that revenue streams are collected and where it goes, and then kind of our new structure that we issued for 2026. So under the old structure, the property tax collection estimate is overall the same at about 55.8 million. But the one thing to denote is that we made an administrative decision to, instead of money flowing into the debt service fund for about $3 million, it flowed into the general fund. Since we were struggling on the general fund side, we decided to take advantage of that $18.5 million fund balance and divert more money going into the general fund and spend some of that $18.5 million down by not putting as much revenue in there. So that's kind of, I probably should have showed this a couple weeks ago on how the money came in and where it flowed to, but this is a good representation to where it's not that we're necessarily raising the mill levy overall, it's just we're diverting where it goes. So policy issues to consider just overall with the CIP and it refers to any debt. So what CIP projects do we need to prioritize? Do we need to add anything? Do we need to reduce anything or even remove anything within the CIP? We also talked a lot about 15 versus 20-year bonding, and we'll get into that on a later slide. But obviously 15 years is cheaper over a time horizon. But if we went to just 15 years, there would be some CIP reductions since there's more cost in a shorter time frame. But 20 years, since the payments are more spread out, that gives us a little bit more flexibility. Now, that we'll go through some of that later, but that's just the broad talking points there. And then where do we value the mill revenue generation going? So back on this previous slide, do we want more of it going into the general fund to pay those obligations, or do we want to build up our fund balance and the debt service fund balance? Those are policy decisions by the council. So big chart here, but I would focus on the third row with $1 million. So this chart depicts that if we bond $1 million at 5%, our annual debt service payment for 15 years would be $96,000. And then in the next column, an annual payment, if we bond it at 20 years, is $80,000. That makes sense because obviously over a longer time frame, the payments are going to be shorter. But on the next slide, you'll see the inverse of that. Yeah, obviously, if you bond it 20 years, it's going to cost more than 15 years because of the interest payments. Now, where did those payments go? So $96,000, if we cut $1 million from the CIP in 1 year, that would mean our debt service payments would be reduced by $96,000. If we bond it 15 years, would be reduced at $96,000 for the next 15 years. And then if we just said, hey, we want to just cash fund that today, that $1 million wouldn't touch the debt service fund. That would be paid solely out of the general fund. So that's kind of how that works, and we can get into that a little bit more. But main thing to know is 20-year bond. Anytime you bond something, it's going to cost obviously more because of the interest. But the reason we're doing that is because it's less. We have more options today because our general fund is strapped for cash, and our debt service fund has the ability for cash. So that's at least the staff perspective. So. And then one thing to realize is, let's say we wanted to cut debt service money, but we wanted to divert more of that going into the general fund. If we cut $1 million, that would allow us to put $96,000 transferring from the debt service fund mill levy into the general fund mill levy, just as an example. So we're going to go through 3 scenarios tonight, and so obviously there's a million scenarios. We can run a million, but we just thought 3 is a good starting point. So what this chart shows is, and we have to look at the next 15 years because obviously debt goes out in case 15 to 20 years. So on this slide, if we look at the first table on the left is 2026, that's our 36.956 mill levy, and each one of those is where the mill levy would be appropriated to. Now, if we bond it 20 years in this graph and we had the following mill levy structure, we wouldn't have to reduce anything in the CIP. This would allow us to transfer more money into the general fund because we'd be spending more of that end of year fund balance down on the second farthest to right column, and we wouldn't have to make any CIP cuts. So that's kind of a quick and dirty estimate, but the reason that works is basically since we're spreading costs out over 20 years, that's less cost each year, to where on the next example, and that's just this slide on your screen is an example of the CIP projects. On this next example, since those payments are more scrunched together up front, albeit they're less than interest cost overall, we'd have to make CIP reductions because there's more money up front that we're spending. So smoothing the payments out allows us to do more CIP projects with that mill levy structure and those interest rate structures. And then finally, but in the 15-year last thing, in the 15-year bond example, we'd have to cut $3 million a year, which is the reduction factor in red on this slide. So for 26 through 2034, let's say, hey, we wanted to go back to 15-year bonding, we'd have to find $3 million in each one of those years. Obviously, you can mix and match, and we can see how the math works later on. But that's just to give you an idea of how much we'd have to cut. Now, let's say we wanted to bond back at 15 years, but we also wanted to say, you know what, we wanted to go back to our old structure of how we did things in 2025. we would have to reduce not 3 million, but up to 4 million. But then on the flip side is that's less money going into the general fund than what we've communicated in for 2027. So obviously there's a lot of moving parts to this, but I kind of go back to those policy questions we want to answer early on is what do we need to prioritize? Do we need to add or reduce or anything? See how that shakes out. And then what are we more comfortable with? 15 years versus 20 years. Obviously, you pay things in 15 years, those payments are more scrunched together, like I said, and that would lead to some cuts depending on if we did anything with item number 1. But that's just kind of the high level overview of what our rationale was as we entered the CIP cycle and the budget cycle. So obviously that's a lot of information. I know the city manager said probably most likely getting deferred. So we're happy to answer any questions tonight or touch base offline throughout the week.
Okay. Thank you, Josh. Questions from the governing body? I guess, again, any questions from the governing body? Councilwoman Hiller.
I think
And
people
Councilwoman
know
Ortiz.
that I have an alternate proposal when it's time. I didn't know if you were going to do public comment first.
I am.
Okay.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hey, Josh, go back to page 4. Where's the,
This page?
no,
Which one?
So, go back
Unfortunately,
one.
the zoom on my screen is blocking the page number.
go back
Hold on.
one more. Right there.
This one?
No, that's not it. It's the one that has the, right there. The motor vehicle taxes, is that the same as the gas and the fuel tax?
No, that's.
So where's that located?
That gas tax goes to our special highway fund. That funds Tony Trower and the pothole crew. That's the gas tax, and that's where that money flows from the state and county.
So we don't use it other than for the streets, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
So we wouldn't use it here?
No, we wouldn't use it in this case, no.
So what's the motor?
Motor vehicle tax is when you go to the county and you register your vehicle. We get a portion of that, and a lot of that goes into our general fund too, but it's prorated. So basically, if we collect $1 million, 700, however the percentage of our mill levy split, it would go to each one of those funds.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If there are no further questions for you, Josh, we do have a lady signed up for public comment. Ms. Twemlow? Thank you, Josh.
Last time tonight. Thank you. Again, this is not this is something to consider, again, that has been brought up several times. While we have the financial piece that we always have to worry about with the CIP process, that it would be in our best interest to really develop some sort of rubric in deciding how we move forward on these projects. I believe several months ago, when the discussion came up over a certain project, even Councilman Dobler had mentioned, how do we decide on which project to do next? And it really seems that it doesn't clearly have any prioritization except for that it's just the next thing on the list. There is likely way more than that, right? I know that it is reviewed in different committees, but what is the standard rubric that we're using to make sure that we're having the best impact? So we need to make sure that we're asking some very basic things that are equitable, that are transparent, and they're data-driven. We need to define the need and intent and ask, what does this project fulfill? What benefit or outcome does it seek to create for the community? What informed this request? Was it data? Was it community input? Was it a document of public safety concern? We need to evaluate the community impact. What does the data, the public feedback, and historical context tell us about who is most affected by this issue that the project seeks to address? Could this project create unintended consequences for communities, either during construction or after completion? You need to analyze these equity outcomes and ask what are the disparities or inequities this project will impact if implemented. Will it help reduce, widen, or maintain existing inequities? How will the city mitigate any unintended consequences or might arise for vulnerable communities during the project's lifespan? And these aren't abstract questions. They are the foundation of responsible governance and equitable investment. This is done as a policy practice in many, many realms, not just in cities, but in organizations, hospitals, counties, at multiple different levels as a basic set of questions to make sure you're progressing in a way that's most beneficial. Then you have to stay accountable and reassess throughout the process. This is, as we've heard, a living document. It must be revisited throughout the project lifecycle at design, implementation, and completion. It's a process. To give a concrete example, this past August, I emailed my council member to ask how a traffic study could maybe be requested for Southeast Adams. After 3 pedestrians have died while crossing that street and another person injured but survived along that same corridor. That very night during council meeting, there was a presentation that was given that stated we had very aging traffic safety or traffic lights throughout our community, and that one traffic light at Adams is the oldest in our city. Now, I'm not in any way indicating that there's correlation to this aging traffic light to these pedestrian deaths and harm, but it does beg the question of when's the last time we looked at the safety of that area of town, the grade of that hill or the curve, or the how functioning this traffic safety light is that is well above needing replacement. So when the CIP process lacks a clear rubric, critical projects that can fall through the cracks, while others that need less urgent needs move forward simply because they've been on the list longer. But we can fix this. We can have a transparent, equity-centered rubric. We can ensure that Topeka's limited resources go to the projects that are most needed, strengthen neighborhoods, and close the gaps that too often leave parts of our community behind. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Before we proceed, Councilman Duncan, was there a motion that you wanted to make from the governing body on this particular issue?
Yes, I can, but I mean, I don't want to end discussion because we may make adjustments or
Are there some
amendments
discussion?
tonight, so yeah.
Okay.
I just don't want to vote on the final document till next week, Mayor.
Okay. So, any questions, discussion on this item? Councilwoman Hiller.
I'll kick it off. Hopefully others have worked on certain sections or certain projects and so on and have other comments. I decided, and no surprise I think to anybody, that I would really focus on the GO bond debt and see if there was a way that we could reduce the amount of bonding, reduce the amount of cost to us. And Josh, if you could put up the very last slide of the debt service projections that you had in your presentation.
It's on my screen.
I want to say, as I did 2 weeks ago when we talked about this, how much I appreciate being able to work back and forth with Josh. He's been really responsive as I asked questions and as we tweaked I always get the names, the bond schedule itself, as well as then the debt service projection that went with it. For me, okay, if you can back up to your number one choice first, yes. For me, the 20 years and the projection for what the debt service mill rate would be was absolutely unacceptable. The fact that we don't have enough money to do our operating budget right now, and if we were going to drop how much we put into the debt service fund by 2 mills this year, but keep borrowing and end up having to, within only a couple of years, to increase how much went into the debt service fund by 3 mills over what it's proposed for this year. I found it unlikely that we would be able to figure out how to do that, because we've got $15 million, which is 10 mills that we need to make up in the operating budget. And so letting ourselves set ourselves up for needing to raise money, bring more money out of the operating budget and or raise taxes to cover our debt service was not an option that I felt we could cover. And so with that, I began to look at different ways to, manage the balance of the debt service fund, but also went back into the spreadsheet itself, if you can flash back just upper back ones, that to say, answer those questions that were discussed earlier. Is this something we have to do? And is it something we need to do this way, that we need to bond? Is there another way to get it done? In short, what you got, and did everybody get it yesterday? Staff mailed it out to the council around 5 o'clock yesterday, this proposal. I have some copies if anybody doesn't have one with them. And thank you, Judge, for making some at the last minute. They don't have the color slide, so hopefully you've got a copy with the colors, but I can walk it along. So I went into that. What you got in the handout, and I have, again, nobody needs a copy, I guess, okay. Is pretty much that same grid, in simple terms, taking a look at the biggest projects, many of which we put in there as placeholders in the past, began to increasingly do that, and say, is there another way to do this? Should it be here, or is there another way to do this? Overall, what I looked at was to get that CIP manageable with 15-year bonds, and also only 10-year bonds for the items that have a lifespan of 10 years officially. That meaning any fire trucks or fleet. Our policies say we won't ever borrow for a longer term than the lifespan of the item that we're doing. Our policies also say that we're really only supposed to be using debt in order to spread what's intended to be a one-time purchase over time, so it's not a big hit on somebody right away. We are financing a number of things that we do every year for the same amount of money in that plan. And so if possible, I looked too at, can we back those out? Can we convert them to cash at some point? Because as I handed out to you 2 weeks ago and Josh mentioned, if we bond things for 15 years, it costs 43% more. And if we bond them for 20 years, it costs 60% more. And so for something that would cost $1 million in simple terms, we're talking about choosing to spend $1.6 million on it instead. If we're doing that kind of purchase, our firm improvements on our facilities, many of which are largely maintenance, replacing fleet items. We have traffic signals that Danielle mentioned. Every year we have the same amount of money for traffic signals. So why should we spend 43 or 60% more than their actual cost when we're doing it over and over again? If there was a way to back it up, I wanted to see if we could do it. So, second was I wanted to make sure we didn't have a tax increase needed to do our debt service over the 15-year projection. And 3, if possible, save the taxpayers a lot of money. The proposal that I'm giving you has all the proposed projects, but spending $116 million instead of $147 million. Thank you, Josh, for that number. There are 15-year bonds and 10-year bonds for the items with 10-year lifespans. There would be no tax increase because of this GO bond budget. And the savings in what you have in your hand to taxpayers is over $25 million with my recommendation number 1, and potentially $35 million or more in the 15 years if we take some of the other steps. So where I'm going with this is that you all would adopt at least the modified CIP, the modified, again, I call them by the right name, bond schedule and debt service projection that are in this packet. There's an opportunity to do more. So to go inside, you've got an amended bond schedule like the one that's above. And And then there are 2 pages of detail after that explaining each line item and change. But what you can see with the shaded areas is that staff advised us when they introduced the items that, for instance, we might not need a whole $2 million for the fleet garage move, that we're not quite done with all that, but it's set in 2026 because that's when it would get bonded. So that one was overshaded in green just because I left it in, but we might not need quite that much. Unless I'm wrong on that at this point. The Wanamaker and I-470 ramps, which are about 2/3 of the way down the page in green for those of you who have the color. The staff advised us when they handed out the program that the people are talking with KDOT, and we might well only need to spend about 50% ourselves on that project and get some assistance covering it. I left the totals in there on that one as well. And then on the firm project, you can see that the staff just plugged it at $2.3 million to start and then steadily went up to where it's $2.7 million at the end. We don't even have a master spreadsheet, at least that I asked for, to talk about what really is needed. We've been spending a substantial amount of money on our facilities, and I've been on the council long enough, we were advised that we need to do $2 million or 2.3 or something like that for a number of years, but then we would be done. So I marked that in green, thinking that once staff has looked at that further and that we've had a chance to, I went ahead and left the numbers in there, but hopefully that's a line item that we could reduce or convert to cash as well. Back up to the top, you've got gold on the fire truck replacements. The numbers that the staff put in there are in there, but they're going to be bonded at only 10 years instead of 15. Same thing when you scoot on down, and the, where are they? I'm looking at one that doesn't have color on it at this point. The Transops fleet replacements at 1.033 each year. Same thing, they're at 10% instead of 15. Ideally, ones that could also convert to cash if we can come up with a system. The numbers that have changed, thank you. We do have one, but thank you, is that I've been meeting with the Citizens Advisory Council for the NIAs since November to talk about some of their budget things, and we've been talking about the DREAMS program. With knowing that this meeting was coming up, the shading isn't on here. Oh, you can't see the yellow on black and white. And they voted to reduce the DREAMS 1, 2, and 3 programs to consolidate them into a single program. Right now, DREAMS 1 and 2 have been on alternate years. On the big year, only one neighborhood got the whole thing. On the off year, neighborhoods could compete for it. And they also had what you might call a sandwich in their DREAMS 3 program, where there was some infrastructure money and some CDBG money, and people found it a little confusing. The proposal that they voted to support was to shift that into kind of collapsing DREAMS 1, 2, and 3 together and having $850,000 per year, every year, that all neighborhoods could bid for. Those are infrastructure projects. What that did was left CDBG money for DREAMS 3. That's not infrastructure money, that's more flexible money that the neighborhoods can do other things with. On the side, since we're talking about the neighborhoods and DREAMS, staff has also agreed that the housing money that's also been packaged into $330,000 that only one neighborhood gets each year will also be open to all the neighborhoods. So pretty excited about opening that up. That does reduce some numbers through here. There really wasn't much conversation about it, but I personally am hoping that with consolidating DREAMS, that if we can soon decide how we're going to raise the money for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, so that there's $1 million a year, not just $1 million ever, those dollars for housing will be available to the neighborhoods by 2027 as well. And I think, then what I did was take out some of the big projects. And those are itemized in terms of the way that they could be funded otherwise. Polk Quincy East, the first one to come out, and it was budgeted in for 2030. And what we did with that, which is in your packet, was create a future projects list. And there's also some detail about that. As far as I've been concerned all along, we should have done whatever it took to not have to invest the 22 million. Is it 22 or 27 that we've got in the current Polk Quincy?
22.
22 million in Polk Quincy. We're being asked just kind of the straight formula, 10% for Polk Quincy East, which we're going into local consults for on Thursday. And we also have Polk Quincy West that needs to be done where US 75 comes in out near McVicker, past west of McVicker near Gage and Fairlawn. Another 19 million that's not even in this plan yet. As far as I'm concerned, we need to have the city manager and the key staff start advocating right now to mitigate our cost altogether for the Polk Quincy East. It's still something we can work on, but to take it out of the formula for what we're going to need for tax money and work on it, because we've decided those three together would mean that the city of Topeka would have to pay $60 million because of interstate going through our town that we didn't design. We didn't cause the problems with the turn and the viaduct that are working on now. There's time. We had Shawnee County delegation, state delegation commitment that they were willing to work on it with us 2 years ago. Some folks felt like it was too late to make that change for Polk Quincy. That's underway right now, but I really think we can do it. So it's on a future, Polk Quincy East is on a future project list, but I pulled it out of this particular spreadsheet. Southeast 29th Street, Turnpike Authority was in for 2032, so beyond our CIB. For that one, KTA has said they don't think there'd be enough traffic for them to invest in it. Maybe we can still work on that. My understanding from city manager is that there is another study underway in terms of some economic development potential for that area that could spur and bring economic development to Topeka from that. So putting that one on the future funding list and looking into seeing how that study comes out and considering it perhaps as an economic development project rather than a traffic project was what I did with that one. For the fire station replacements, there's been a lot of conversation about that. If we should move forward, if we decide to move forward, one of the calculations that has come to light in terms of sales tax is that there might be, if we've learned that 1/10 of a cent sales tax in today's dollars can deliver $3.6 million. The estimate we were given in this spreadsheet for fire stations was $11 million for a fire station. I have heard from some that they didn't think they should cost that much, but I didn't argue with that number. If in fact we again agree to do it, and I know there's been some disagreement about that since it was proposed, if the voters wanted to support that, 1/10 of a cent is likely to be something that could pass if those fire stations were done in 3-year increments. And we usually do our capital projects in 3-year increments anyway, a design year, utilities and site plan year, and then a construction year. 3 years worth of 1/10 of a cent would accumulate enough money over 3 years to pay cash for that fire station, and including the design work. They could be done in a 3-year package. I've checked it out with folks. You know, they're a little worried that if we were going to do it, we really need to commit to doing all 3 of them. That could be a 9-year commitment, 3, 3, and 3, and get it locked. So the fire stations are on the future project list as well. And last, I pulled the heavy-duty fleet garage, which was in at about $8 million. Because we're not sure when we would do it. It's likely to be tied to riverfront redevelopment. So it was plugged in there in 2031. Seemed safe to pull it off into a future year list. With that, the page that you have following shows that because the council already voted to drop that mill levy that goes into the debt service fund from 9.7 to 7.7 for 2026, it's got that in there. Council could challenge the city manager to figure it out and come up with the 2.8 million anyway, but assuming it was going out, to go right back to the 9.717 the rest of the time, whereas, and Josh, can you go back to your final debt service projection slide? Where the final debt service projection on the staff's presentation that has the 9.7 drops to 7.7 and then goes straight line for the rest, that one only has 5 million in the debt service fund. And the year-end balance, it's the next to the last column, $5 million left with all the expenses in there. With the change to the changes that I've proposed, there is 30.29 million left in that fund instead. That's where the 25 million savings quote that I gave you comes from. And another option to make that even better is looking at how healthy the run is in the handout that you have. Starts at 8.531 million, never drops some change below 10, and ends up at 30. We could choose to pull that 2 mills out for the entire rest of the plan, but my recommendation would be that that go into a capital improvement cash fund, so that we've made sure we just lose heart on paying cash for our capital projects. If we move that into a capital improvement cash fund, we could start in 2027 moving things like the fire trucks, the traffic signals, the other things out of this bonding money. That's where that extra 35 million or more savings comes from, because once we aren't bonding them at all, it adds up. So when you get back to the front page of the proposal, then the proposed motion is to at least adopt the changes in the bond schedule as described, which would then stick with the debt service projection on the next page at a minimum to get us on track with that shift. The possible motion number 2 on the front page is to ask the city manager to figure out even the 2.8 million that we're foregoing this year. But the motion number 3 is to create that capital improvement cash fund and plan to do that starting in 2027 on. And with that, I would be happy to take questions. I know it's a lot. I spent a lot of time on it, and again, appreciate Josh and the various folks that I consulted with. I won't throw them out under the proverbial bus, but a lot of people were very generous with their time and thoughts.
Thank you. Councilman Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is why I wanted to vote next week, among other reasons. There are some things in here that I like, and Councilwoman Hiller and I have talked. There are some things in here I don't, and there are some things in here I'm going to need some more information from staff on. So for instance, making some of those changes to Dreams, which CAC seems to be on board with, the infill sidewalk adjustment, I'm okay with. I also share some of the same frustrations and concerns with the Polk Quincy Viaduct situation, the east. I also, while I won't speak for my colleagues, think amongst myself and several others, we'd probably like to leave in the other interchange at the 29th Street and the Kansas KTA Authority, right? And I will send an email to staff, I'm not asking for an answer tonight, a little bit more clarification. I know it's in here on what the $11 million is exactly paying for on the fire station, along with an update and some sort of status of our current heavy-duty fleet garage. I also know at one point there was some talks that we can do those two things together, possibly, which could lead to some savings over an overall price tag of lowering that. So I think that's a worthwhile conversation to have. Same with as you look at some of the adjustments that have been suggested in the notes. I like some of these ideas. Again, same, don't like a few of them, need some clarification. So what I plan to do next week is I will send that email to staff to ask for just a couple, hey, explain this one to me, or what are your thoughts? and then try to come back next week with the things I like that I can then offer up as amendments one at a time instead of this bulk, a little more retail, a little less wholesale approach to it, so we can do that, and then I'll leave it up to Councilwoman Heller to I'll try to amend anything else she likes in there. But just want to let you know that's one reason why I'll make the motion here in a minute to push some of those decisions to next week. But I do plan to bring a few of these forward as individual amendments because I think there's some good things in here, and we need to make those now. We can't just continue to push it off and say we'll figure it out next year. So thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Vadiviakla.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. I think the only thing I have to say at this point is with that 11 million designated for the new fire station, with the amount of holes, people in District 2, people with the NIA, people for Noto, residents, when we had meetings with the chief, fire chief, deputy chief, city manager, assistant city manager, et cetera, there was a lot of holes that average residents, people that know the intimacy of the fire stations that we have in District 2, had with the presentation, and a lot of concerns of the vulnerabilities if projects did not flow as smoothly as were being anticipated. So city manager said a hold on talking more about the fire commission, et cetera, but I think at this point we need to get moving with getting it up and running, and the commitments from the city manager, which there was about 10, maybe 10 people at that meeting, maybe not that many, no, it was about 10, is that there would be a new fire commission. Every council person would be invited to be a part of the fire commission. They would have one representative from their district. They would be live meetings. There would be time for allowance of public comment. And I think that's it. So I think that since we're seriously, looking so deep at the CIP, that we need to get moving on getting that fire commission reestablished. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick for staff. At some point, can we be reminded of our contractual and/or public transportation obligation for these highway projects?
So I'll tell you what KDOT's current position is in terms of prioritizing projects. They look to the local units of government for their participation, and the general rule is 10%. Now that's negotiable. So for example, the initial cost on Fort Quincy Viaduct was estimated to be about $220 million. So the ask from KDOT in terms of the local match was 10% or $22 million. Now, the project costs significantly increased after that agreement was entered into between the state and the city, and their ultimate cost is closer to $300 million, but they still left our share at $22 million. The discussion that we had on PQV East with KDOT was, again, if you want us to prioritize the project, we're expecting the local unit of government to step up. The initial project cost that they had for PQV East is $180 million, which is why we have the $18 million as the placeholder, which would be a 10%.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Karen, thank you for this. There's been discussion about this back and forth with me and you as well. There's some things on here that I like and some things that I don't. And I'm going to talk about the Dreams 1 and 2 and 3. I did not like how it was brought to the CAC and then boom, here it is, and then we vote on it. I didn't like that. Another thing is, I'm going to ask who all was there, because when you guys went in for the Dreams 1, 2, and 3, you guys spent a couple years on that to get to that process. Am I correct? I think it was 2 or 3 years.
A year anyway.
Yeah, it was a lot, a back and forth. And there was a lot of people missing. So the Citizens Advisory Board is brought up of NIA members. Every NIA, they have a citizen from their NIA. To those of you that don't have NIAs, so they have a citizen who they appoint somebody to go to the Citizen Advisory Board. And then the Citizen Advisory Board, they have a president, and then all the members from all the NIAs. But there's a lot of NIAs that were not there. They were not present. And so for them to vote on this and say, yeah, we accept it, I want to hear from, I want to be fair. Monroe wasn't there. Jefferson Square wasn't there. You know, there's some other NIAs, and I want to make sure who was there. And so what the members do is they come to the CAC meeting, they get the information, they get to vote on things, and then they take that information back to that NIA. And when I look at my 11 NIAs, I can tell you there was 6 of them that weren't there. And so to have this big of a change, I want to make sure that everybody is on board, you know. And yes, it is their obligation to make sure that they have a representative at that CAC meeting. But again, they don't get paid for this. This is volunteers. They do it once a month. And it takes a lot of time. When I listen to this discussion, and I also listened to a couple of people there that were big stakeholders in there, I don't think they quite wanted this. But again, I'm going to pull that. I will have staff send it to everybody so you guys can listen to that meeting and know that. And I'm also going to ask who was not there, because that was huge. They felt like we weren't getting anywhere, and that was their decision to change all this. Did I like it? No, I didn't like it. But you know what? I got used to it, so now I kind of liked it. Because they all have a chance to sit down and apply for these grants. Just like a lot of people are saying, man, High Crest is taking everything. Valley Park is taking everything. No, they're not. They're just putting their ass to work, and they're working on these projects, and they're getting something done. And so these other NIAs, they need to either catch up, or that's why I tell my NIAs, I don't want to lose the funding that we have to get things done. We've just kind of did it in a different direction than I've been taught years ago, even before I got on this council. So I do want to mention that. That's a concern for me. Also, when I look in here, and it says that we need a design per proposal for the new fire station. How many damn designs do we need? We have a lot. And I don't think we need that. I think we have a fire chief that has been in the works, and he knows what he's doing, and I think that we can grab one of those off the shelf. Look at our stations. The guys know what they like. They know what's outdated and all that. I don't think we need $100,000 for that. Also, I kind of want to check on the fire apparatuses, and I want Josh to explain that to me, because I know there was a time that we got behind, and I know there was a time that I don't know if we're caught up. I don't know where we're at, but I was driving behind one of those big apparatuses and the gas tank fell off. That's nothing I want to see again. I do not want to see that again. I was driving behind another one, and the smoke was so black, I thought my car was on fire when it passed by. That's something I don't want to see again. The fleet move, I wanted to know, I thought we were going to be there for a while. So Josh, that's a question that I have. How long are we going to be there? Are we renting that? Maybe it's to our benefit that we rent it. I don't know why we're going through this. So there's a lot of questions on here that I have. Spencer, I thank you for wrapping this all up and letting us have something else to study this week. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hofer.
I have a question as to when we have to have the CIP. Sorry. When do we have to have the CIP passed? Is it next week? Do we have?
So technically, like, the answer would be never. You just have to approve the projects. That way, you could technically approve each project one by one. But anytime we issue a design contract, there has to be some ordinance or resolution attached to it. But ideally, end of the year, that way, we do it in one batch. That way, it's not such an administrative burden at council meetings to go through one by one and at Public Works Infrastructure Committee. So it's not, unlike the budget where that is a pass or fail grade and we have to submit it to the state, the CIP is just more of an internal administrative process.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
All right, so it looks like everyone's discussed Councilwoman Hiller's ideas. I was going to propose that we stop the Complete Streets program for now. To me, it's a big budget constraint. It affects homeowners. They're losing property, they're losing part of their driveway. Retaining walls are being put up where now it becomes safety hazards when they're mowing their yard or their kids playing in their yard. It's just adding extra wide roads, bike paths, multi-use extra wide sidewalks that a lot of these homeowners don't need. And now that actually adds cost onto the homeowner when that sidewalk needs to be replaced. Now it has to be replaced to that standard, and that's extra cost compared to a regular sidewalk. We don't know how it's going to affect property values as well. I know one person contacted me yesterday on the proposed Huntoon area that we've been talked about, that they're afraid that their property value is going to plummet now because it's going to increase the traffic on Huntoon so much. And we haven't really, to me, looked long-term on some of those. Then you have the added cost of planning, design, engineering, costs for the extra size, the more size you use on the roads. To me, we need to go, like I said before, back to the KISS philosophy. Work on our main streets, mainly our arterials, add sidewalks on our arterials, because we have many arterial roads that don't have any sidewalks, that we have people walking in the road. Then we look at long-term patchwork on our roads. I've suggested to the city manager and the streets about maybe having a test plot like we do for our UBAS road and trying to figure out what works for Topeka for the amount of traffic we have, for the summer and winter conditions that we have. We need to look at what we're doing with our budget because as I've had a lot of people on the Huntoon area, they're scared about what's going to happen to their property when that comes to it. And then a lot of people talking about our other project that we talked about is out on 45th off of Gage, talking about how short of a project that is lengthwise of miles and how it actually connects to a county road on that. So half that 45th is Topeka, half of that is county. So we're kind of setting it up to look all great and beautiful and all this kind of stuff, and then we're just going to butt it up right to a county road and it's going to just end. A lot of people have contacted me in the last week or two since I initially brought up the idea of getting away from complete streets, why we're having these budget issues, and look at our main roads throughout town that the majority of us travel and work on those first, get those roads up and going the way they're supposed to, get the sidewalks in where there need to be sidewalks at. And then we can look in the future when there might be better time for the budget at these nicer projects of these roads. But right now, to me, complete streets is nowhere near what we need to be doing for our citizens and for our budget. Thank you.
Councilman Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. Two things. I guess I'll just say, complete streets, every city has to have a guiding principle to use as its baseline design policy. We have chosen complete streets, which isn't uncommon across the country. And so if we really want to do that, we need to replace it with something. So I don't think it's just as simple as rolling back complete streets and going from there. As I've said before, for instance, on the Huntoon Street project, I'm glad we have a baseline approach to make those decisions, but then that's why those come before us to make discerning decisions that say, hey, I understand why you started here, but let's work backwards because it may not fit this project, but it absolutely helps us fit within other projects. And so if we're going to take that kind of step, Councilman, we at least need to then provide some sort of guiding policy for staff and engineers and designers to be able to use as kind of some expectations that we have as a community. I guess my second thing is, Mayor, I will, looks like we can make the motion, Mr. Banks can talk. I will make the motion to defer action item, what is this? G to final action at the October 21st meeting of the governing body. That's my
Okay.
motion. Sorry, that's a motion, yes.
I have a motion to defer. Councilman Duncan. I'm seeing Councilwoman Hofer. No, okay, you took that off. Okay. Okay.
Duncan made the motion, who made the second? There we go.
Yeah, I'm looking for a second is by Councilwoman Hofer. Okay. Under discussion, I have Councilman Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Referencing Councilwoman Hillard's proposal to this body, there are a few things on there. First, I'd like to say thank you for your work, and certainly I appreciate the opportunity to sit down and talk about some of these things with you. It's been very informative. There are a couple of things that I think that we cannot afford to push forward past where they are right now. We definitely need to really focus on how important the fire trucks and the stations are. We really need to focus on that. We can't afford to allow them to deteriorate a little more than what they are already. I also have thoughts about pushing out the Turnpike 29th Street project. I think that has such an economic impact for Southeast Topeka that we can't afford to lengthen it. Because I know that if we don't pursue it where it is, then it may get pushed further and further because most people don't know the economic impact that might bring to Southeast Topeka. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the time.
You're sure. Deputy Mayor?
Just to follow up on Councilman Duncan. To me, the plan is, or policy, whatever we want to do, is just fix the roads. Complete streets is extra bells and whistles that aren't needed and a lot of time now not wanted. And our citizens just want our roads to be drivable without blowing out tires, without bottoming out, we need to get our roads to the point where we can then work on bigger projects that add extra sidewalks and things, and bike lanes and things like that. Our citizens want our roads fixed, and when we do all this extra stuff, it takes extra time to do the complete streets projects, it takes extra money to do the complete streets. We can do so much just on a regular road as it is, just tear it up, put it back in as, or asphalt it as is, or whatever. There's so many different things. Complete streets is this a bunch of extra fluff that isn't needed right now with our budget and with what our citizens want. To me, it's just do the basics, do them right, move on to the next one as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple of responses. Hopefully, Councilwoman Valdivia Ortiz will be back. To Councilman Banks' points, I left the year the exact same on all those big projects. One of the reasons they are where they are is we've kicked those cans before, particularly on Southeast 29th Street. That can has been kicked for 15 years. And so when you have time to read those notes again, the issue was, one of the reasons we kick the can is we don't start looking at how to get it done. And again, I think that each of those projects for Polk Quincy, we need to start right now if we want to come up with other money to pay for that share, so that project can be done in the year that it's in this plan. Same thing with Southeast 29th Street. If it turns out that what the city manager's working on is giving us for the first time a full economic development piece on that, great. Let's figure out how to do it, but we might not need to GO bond it if instead it could be done with economic development funds or private funds, because that's what's going to happen. I don't know, but I left the years exactly the same on that future projects list. It was just to look for another way to do it. So think about that if you think it's not feasible, and I'm way open for better ideas too. Regarding Dreams, understand that the money part of Dreams was not the only pieces that the CAC was considering. I started going to those meetings to start recapping with them back last November, so going on a year. And we talked about it at least two or three meetings around the first quarter of last year, and then the staff presented a 7-page analysis of how the DREAMS program was going. For instance, and so if anybody's wanting to relook at that, looking at the letter that one of the ladies who's a member sent out, and I think it went to all of us, the staff report, as well as the set of recommendations I gave them. They approved all but all the ones that had money because they knew we were meeting tonight. It was on their agenda in advance, but again, it came quickly to do that vote, honestly. But there are more elements to retooling and rebalancing that DREAM. So for those who are concerned about that, let me know, or we can send everybody all those different pieces. I'd be happy to visit about how that feedback went. People were overall pretty unhappy with just how it was going for a variety of reasons, and we're eager to get it reconciled and going a little smoother. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah. I would imagine you're going to get a lot of phone calls.
That's okay.
Yeah. Because I think it's obvious here that some of the things that you proposed have some merit. Others probably will take some real discussion to see if you can come to a place that is a resolution that we can live with. I think it's good that we give ourselves a little bit more time.
Absolutely.
So I fully support the motion that we have right now to defer to October 21st. Yeah, August will be a little hard. Yeah, it'll be a little tough. October 21st. So unless there's more discussion at this point, all right. And I think we're ready to vote on the motion.
Okay, we have 9 yes, the motion carries.
Okay. Thank you for the information, Councilwoman. Move on to action item 5H. Madam Clerk.
H is a resolution and notice of intent introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez declaring the necessity to repair, alter, reconstruct, enlarge, or improve the city's water pollution, and/or stormwater utility system through improvement projects authorized by resolution and providing notice of intention, authorizing the issuance of revenue bonds in the manner required by KSA 10-1201 at SEEK.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Josh McInerney, our Division Director of Budget and Finance, will lead us through this item.
Thank you, City Manager. Okay. We're going to ask to defer this motion to the 21st of October.
There's a motion to defer.
I'll move to defer to the same meeting, right, October 21st.
Okay. A motion to defer.
Oh, it was there. Okay, you're there.
All right, yeah. Motion to defer by Councilman Duncan, second by Councilman Miller. I've
I
got,
think I've got Hiller and Miller.
yeah, I've got two people up. Let's give this motion to Councilwoman Hiller.
Okay.
The second by Councilman Miller to defer to October 21st.
Correct.
Okay? Ready to vote?
Yep. Okay, we have 9 yes, the motion carries.
Okay, thank you. That's all of our action items, Madam Clerk. We'll move to public comment. We have 2 people signed up for public comment this evening. Henry McClure.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to thank our police chief. I had more fun on Saturday. What did I say? Police chief? Well, at least I know you're not from Austin, Texas. Thank you, fire chief. All right, anyway, I digress. I had more fun at the fire department right by my house the other day. Got to ride the boom truck, climb up to the top, I learned more about our fire department walking around talking to our professionals than maybe it's a sad commentary on my social life, but man, that was great. Everybody was friendly. You got to know the heart from the people, that they earn their money. They really do. And the comments I got from some of them. But I'll tell you what, this has been the most entertaining meeting that I think I've ever been to tonight. Listening to the comment about hearing every day that development ain't easy in Topeka, Kansas. And also, I really don't think the public knows about TIF and CID, that the developers have to front all the money. And you're not fronting bonds for us because of what happened in College Hill. College Hill was a victim of the Big Short and the banking crisis, and not recording the development agreement. You had a choice of who could have bought it if you just would have recorded the development agreement. But all I hear today is housing, 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 housing. So we put housing in. We followed Washburn's plan and executed a project that was good for the community. Jerry Farley still loves it. So would I do that project again today, even with all the heartache and the financial loss? Yeah, I would, because it was a good project. But I do want to tell you about a development agreement. What you've got to do, you've got to get a uniform development agreement that's signed before, that you don't change. You don't need a but-for test, as long as you follow state law. The rigmarole of 3 or 4 months process is ridiculous. Now let's talk about the Scott brothers up there on Topeka Boulevard and their TIF project. They had a deal that basically had about $200,000 in developer infrastructure to the city improvements. But when they were done, it turned into $1.8 million. Why would these guys are successful guys in Kansas City? And you don't treat people that way. Look at the Maverick deal. You guys, who would want a deal in here? You give $9.5 million to Cody Foster. It seems to be more important who voted for the Dreams project than who voted for the Jetto project and Go Topeka. I want to know who voted on it from the board. They're the people that run you guys. And there's no way you're going to get away without answering to that. I feel confident. The minute the city sued, or the county sued Klossman for Lawrence Bay, I thought, well, there's hope. Can I have 30 seconds?
Any objection from the body? No. Okay, proceed.
You don't know what it's like to be on this site. I just developed a fully engineered little subdivision, 6 lots. And the infrastructure cost came to $70,000 a lot for lots that are worth $20,000 because of the same concept of the fluff. Maybe we could tone it down a little bit. Maybe we can tell the city standards are kind of blended. But the way you deal with the outsiders, like you did the Scots, and the little guys, I would thank Mr. Klossman. He gave me the updated numbers on. I got them directly from him because for some reason we couldn't find them at the city. But we ought to keep checking on the Wheatfield. It's a great project, but he fronted all the money. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Lassiter?
Good evening, Mayor and City Body. Mr. Mayor, I wanted to give you a compliment here before you exit your mayoral position, whenever that might be. And that is, you said something maybe a couple of times, and that was that you had an open door policy, that anybody could just walk in, even if they're in opposition, but they had an opportunity to speak to you. And I can appreciate that as a citizen in this city. I wanted to address an issue that has happened with us, meaning myself and some of our concerned citizens, and without calling the manager's name, I know we have 2 assistant managers, and one of our assistant managers I had addressed, and he gave an apology in response why he didn't meet with us. The other one, I went actually down to our city hall, which I always do, I'm down there a lot, went down to city hall and left a message at the front desk to see one of our city managers who handles the utilities and all of that. And he didn't respond, so I went ahead and just took it as he didn't respond. Then later in the day, I received an email, which I want all of you to have an email, and some of you, I think I sent this email too. I haven't gotten a response, but that's all right too. But in this email, the statement was made, the city manager whom I work for has determined that it is not in the best interest of the city to meet with you and your colleagues. Well, I felt privileged with the fact that you even use the language colleagues, because colleagues automatically connotates and denotes business and professional people who we are. We're stakeholders in this city, we're veterans. I was just shocked that the person of this stature and tenure would even use that language, because he was falling into some foolery. My concern is that I called back. He eventually called a meeting and said to me that I'm over the utility and the planning and so forth. And I said, actually, I was going to talk to you about a utility issue, because I am concerned with some seniors, as well as myself and some others, about some utility issues, as well as an issue that's going on Long Gauge, but I won't go into that right now. And then I made a call to the city attorney, or your interim city attorney, or our interim city attorney, and he never returned my call. And that call was about, I wanted to talk with him and some other seniors about claims in this city. Not anything specific, but senior persons who do not have computers, who do not understand going online, and they are concerned that they can come in and have a conversation. Haven't gotten that back. My bigger concern with that is I believe we have about 10 attorneys in this city. And I just wonder if there's one of them, and 5 of them are making over $100,000. I just wonder if there was one of them that's assigned to the community, that if persons want to come in and find out business or policy, I want to find out if anybody would sit down and go through a policy or a process about claims in the city. Maybe somebody in legal would talk to us. I'm going to give you this information because our second city attorney, assistant attorney, gave a very appropriate apology because he had a problem or a trauma in his family, and he did return a comment to us. But his also stated that the city manager had told him, or requesting that he not meet with our colleagues or our concerned citizens. As I am dealing with all of this, I think that it's important for us to understand that we are not adversarial. We are definitely citizens in this city that's concerned about everybody. And there are about 3 things that I wanted to wrap this up with. I might be running out of time, but I'll probably ask for another minute. And that's a proverb that I've been looking at, and that's when a wise instructor receives words of wisdom, and they give words of wisdom, that man becomes wiser.
How much time do you need, Ms. Lester?
1 minute.
Okay. Any objection from the body? Please proceed.
So I've been mentored with a lot of wise leaders or elders or persons like that. And they often say, if you're in a position, if you can't take the heat, get out the kitchen and let somebody else do the cooking. My prayer is that the magnitude of what we're dealing with here seems like a sabotage to us as concerned citizens, which is not making a lot of sense to us, and it's not healthy, and it really is unwise. So as I see you leaders in this city and hearing some of this, I need you to understand we're not adversarial, we are advocates for the citizens of Topeka. The one person that responded about our colleagues, it concerned me because this person is a serious man of stature, I felt, in this city, a person of tenure in this city, and for him to subject himself to the bondage language that we are to reject this particular group concerns me, because we've been here too long in this city to be rejected in that manner. I want you to have a copy of both of the emails that we received, and I hope that I get opportunity to speak with Mr. Jefferson, that he'll return my call. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Those are two individuals we had. We can move to announcements. Madam Clerk.
Okay, for the October 14th meeting, we have two presentations. The first one is the Downtown Digital Kiosk Pilot Program, and the second is the KTA Interchange Development Impact. Consent agenda consists of minutes and applications. We have one action item, discussion and possible action to amend TMC sections related to citations for abandoned vehicles. Non-action items include discussion on the 2026 special alcohol and drug funding recommendations, discussion on the merchant and private security guard ordinance, and then the third one is discussion for property maintenance code compliance. I also want to announce that in November, pursuant to Resolution 9606 and due to General Election Day, the Tuesday meeting, November 4, of the governing body has been canceled and rescheduled for Wednesday, November 5th at 6 p.m. in the City Council chambers. And due to the Veterans Day holiday, the Tuesday meeting, November 11, has been canceled and rescheduled for Wednesday, November 12th at 6 p.m. in the City Council chambers.
Thank you for the reminder.
Can you repeat that last one for sure? Because I think that one's important.
For the November 11th
Wednesday.
meeting? Yeah, it's canceled and it's rescheduled for Wednesday, November 12th.
The second one caught me.
Yeah.
Okay. Move on to announcements from City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to take a second to, I think it was Councilmember Hiller who alluded to it earlier. Kansas Department of Transportation will hold the 2025 local consult on Thursday, October 9th, 2025 from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Manor Conference Center. Local consult is KDOT's public engagement process for the Eisenhower Legacy Transportation, or IKE program, held every 2 years to gather input from Kansans on potential expansion and modernization projects in each region. This process helps strengthen local partnerships, identify the KDOT programs that matter most to communities, and gather feedback on how KDOT can improve delivery. Public Works will once again be asking for support of the PQ East project. A fact sheet for this project will be distributed at this meeting. Again, I guess in referencing our CIP, Public Works has budgeted $19 million in the 2028 year for this project. Governing body members are encouraged to attend. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hofer.
Okay, I have a couple things tonight. First one, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I chose to wear pink. In my family, unfortunately, I've had one great aunt, 3 aunts, and 4 cousins and 1 sister who've had breast cancer. So I encourage everyone that is of age to get a mammogram. Next, I want to talk about Constitution Hall. They had their first, what I'd consider kind of major event, and it was about the Underground Railroad this last weekend and the Lane Trail. And they must have had well over 100 people come for that specific event. It was the first time the facility was open for an event like that. They're going to be doing more. It was kind of their soft opening, but the facility is wonderful. We are supporting it with TGT funds and have been for several years. And so when they have events, I hope everyone will go and see, because it is really an asset to the community, and it will be used, you will be able to rent it out and use it for graduation parties, wedding receptions, whatever, but that probably won't be until next year. But I just want to make sure people know that it is very close to being fully reused, and it is a wonderful facility. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilwoman Hiller.
I was going to pass, but I'll piggyback on that. It really is a great facility, and kudos to the volunteer board of directors who have been working on that for like 20 years. As with our capital projects, not everything happens overnight, but also to the council members that were involved. The year that they shifted the transient guest tax, which is TGT money, instead of making small grants, decided to consolidate together and provide some larger grants to 4 different initiatives, with the idea that that would be a big enough chunk of money that those entities could then parlay that into other grants and fundraising to actually finish their projects, and Constitution Hall was able to do that. So a lot of good things. Also, they've got some permanent exhibits there. They're roll-ups, so they won't be up all the time, but it's kind of fascinating history about other parts of the Underground Railroad and so on that many we're more familiar with what happened here in Topeka than what happened elsewhere. And so it's pretty educational to be going to any event and just kind of wander around and have a peek at the exhibits they put together. Thank you.
Councilwoman Valdivia-Acala.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I start reading this piece that I'm going to read, I need to ask the interim city attorney to either let me know now or let me know as soon as possible if the Kansas Municipal Employee Whistleblower Act that our governor signed earlier this year, HB 2160, if that act is applicable to our city workers, and if so, if the act is posted in workplace areas.
Council member, I am not sure if that is posted in our areas. I would have to look into that. And I also am not familiar with the provisions of that explicitly, so I'm not sure if it applies or not.
Can you please find out and respond to me by email?
Sure, I can
Thank
do
you.
that. Can you read that to me again?
It is HB 2160.
Okay.
It was signed by Governor Kelly, the Kansas Municipal Employee Whistleblower Act. It
Okay.
was signed earlier this year.
Okay, thank you.
And so I'm asking about that because I'm bringing the topic of the City of Topeka Utilities Department forward tonight because of deep concerns that have continued to be brought to my attention for about 2 years now. And since then, I've attempted to get either our former city attorney, our past city managers, and our current city manager to respond, to no avail. Now I'm at my wit's end. I endlessly bump up against the same entrenched systems that often keep the city of Topeka from moving forward in a more productive, fair, and transparent manner. I believe information is being kept not only from me, but the governing body as a whole. Yes, these are HR issues, and historically often out of the scope of the governing body. Yet, when the allegations are this egregious, and several council people altogether have been communicated with, then it begs the question to me that something is truly up. For about 2 years, I've been receiving calls for assistance from union representatives, workers, management in the utilities department. I want to be clear, when this all started, I did not seek any of this communication out. It all came to me. The level of allegations against the utilities director and some of the upper management within utilities include allegations of nepotism in hiring, allegations of lack of consistent investigations of employee and union complaints. This includes allegations of lack of transparency and communication after complaints have been filed. Initially, when the complaints were brought up to me, it was after the City of Topeka hiring, with the apparent blessing of our former city attorney, the internal investigator. Concerns and allegations arose, such as the investigator was not experienced in the required investigatory methods and being closely aligned with the former city attorney. If there is one thing I believe, I myself as an elected official, it is the former city attorney was often anti-worker and sought, with the waste of taxpayer dollars, litigation rather than dealing with systemic changes. that desperately need to happen within the city. Since the former city attorney favored the investigator hiring, there has been allegations and constant concern about the lack of fairness, neutrality, and incomplete or one-sided investigation. This particular investigator is now the City of Topeka new HR director with no prior HR director experience. That also was brought forth of concerns by those that I have been talking to within the Utilities Department that have come to me and also expressed as concerns with some council people to the city manager. Now there is frustration that any fairness with the new HR director will never be a possibility, and these same workers do not believe there is any type of open-door policy with the majority of the current administration, and I concur with them. Allegations of fears of retaliation against workers, including union reps fearing retaliation, once they take the chance to file complaints or try and resolve ongoing issues within the Utilities Department. This has created what is perceived as an often toxic and hostile work environment. Allegations of unfair utility charges to residents, and a deep concern that has been stated to me over and over of allegations of excessive spending and wasteful spending that has never been investigated. And when I say spending, I'm talking about millions of dollars during a time when the taxpayers are being squeezed at every turn and we have budget shortfalls. Allegations of blatant disregard of and not abiding by various parts of the union contract. Also, from me, I have passed on, due to a post that I viewed on social media, about, once again, allegations of copper theft by a supervisor in the Utilities Department. I brought this all to the attention of the city manager. Since that time, nothing, not even we are still investigating, until I informed the city manager over a week ago I was bringing all of this up at council, since I am done trying to work through regular channels. Only then was a bit of information brought up on an update coming soon. Finally, I will say this again. I do not know who this city manager is. The concern I have of the change from the interviewing of him over a year ago, and now this major shift over the last several months, leaves me frustrated and disheartened. I will say also, with the former city attorney, there have been emails to me that told me that I should be staying out of all of this, because if there was litigation that came forward, I could be called up. And I told her, if this is your way of a subtle legalese trying to intimidate me, then let me be a part of a legal case so I can really let folks know what I'm receiving and what I perceive is going on. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to personally thank our fire chief, our interim fire chief, Chad Longstaff, for putting on a wonderful open house on Friday and then on Saturday. I know that people are not used to this, but the people that we had, and we will continue to honor our fallen firefighters. It was well accepted. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing tonight.
Deputy Mayor.
I just want to say happy birthday to the Navy. It turns, I believe, 250 years old on the 13th. Also in a week is the deadline to register to vote, I believe, if I saw right. And we'll be having our election here in about a month. So please get out, get registered to vote, get to know the candidates that are on the ballot, become an informed voter, please. Finally, this last weekend, I was able to work a Child Care Aware fundraising event, the Celebrity Waiter Soiree. I wasn't celebrity enough. They had me work the silent auction table, but Dr. Perez was there as one of the celebrity waiters, and he broke out the Righteous Brothers on us in front of the crowd. So I luckily ponied up $50 to get them to quit singing, so. But that was a great event, and it's a growing event. This was only the second year of this event, and it was a lot of fun. That is one thing that I've been trying to search out a lot lately. If you have events that you want people to come help work it, that is something I'm more than always willing to volunteer my time. I may not have thousands of dollars to give, but I have plenty of hours to give. So if you need any help, please reach out to me. Thank you.
Councilman Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Simply, I'll state that I really look forward to these city council meetings because I learn a lot from the public. I appreciate the people who come for public comment because they give perspectives that I don't necessarily look at immediately, but that I'm able to have conversations with city staff and get some responses on. And they give me the answers that I'm looking, not necessarily that I'm looking for, but they give me answers. And whether or not those answers are acceptable to the people who give the public comments, they may or may not be. But they are answers. And I have yet come across anyone who is trying to do things in a way that is intentionally deceiving to the public. They may not be right all the time, but I don't know of how much intentionally they are trying to cause problems for our community. Now, there's council members that I don't agree with on some of the things that they say. Not everything. There's some things that I do agree with. But what I do know is leadership, like all things, starts at the top. Whether it be the city manager or not, leadership starts here at this table. So we can discuss toxic communications and what they look like, but we also need to make sure that we look in the mirror when we do that. So, thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Councilman Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. Two things. Yes, HB 2160 does protect our municipal employees. I know that because I helped write it. I worked with several legislators to make sure that it got through both the House and the Senate and to the governor, and it was specifically tailored that while there are both state and federal protections on whistleblowers, we weren't sure in Kansas that there were specific ones to municipal employees, and I believed, along with others, that that was very critical to have. The people who see wrongdoing within municipal government need to have the protection to come forward. So yes, it does, and that's actually one of the pieces of legislation I got passed last year that I'm still very proud of. Second thing is, you got to register to vote by October 14th, which is next Tuesday. So if you have not, there's upcoming elections. As you can see here, who you elect up here matters. So please, if you are not registered, get registered and make sure you have a voice in this upcoming election. So thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. There is a need for 3 executive sessions this evening, but before we recess, and I think it's important that I weigh in on this. On a fairly regular basis, we have had comments from this body that is openly critical and of our staff, and those comments are protected by a free speech opportunity. But I think it's important for us to remember that oftentimes these comments are made without any proof, without any evidence. It's just one side of a story coming at us. And I want to say publicly, I believe that the people that are often referenced in these comments have been working for the good of this community. They do not seek out to make enemies. They do not seek out individuals for any personal reasons. They perform their duties and responsibilities to this city as they were hired to do in a fair and respectable way, something that I think gets lost in a lot of the comments. The respect gets put away so that the loud noise gets the attention. And right now, in our community and in our country, it's the loud noise that gets the attention without others standing up and saying, wait a minute, wait a minute. Tell us more. Tell us the other side of the story without just one story being brought before us. So it's important for us to remember we balance everything that's said in this dais and in this governing body with fairness in mind. So with that, I have announced that we have 3 executive sessions, and if the city attorney will read, please.
Mayor, after that, may I make one comment, since both what you and Councilman Miller are saying are directed at me and the individuals in the audience, which are the workers?
No, ma'am, you may not.
Okay, then we can do it at a press conference. Okay,
You can do it at press, wherever you want. If you'll read, please.
Mr. Mayor, the motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 30 minutes to give legal advice and discuss one case currently in litigation and other matters deemed privileged under the attorney-client privilege as allowed under KSA 75-4319B2. The open meeting will resume in this room in the governing body chambers. The following staff will be necessary to assist the governing body in its deliberations: the interim city attorney, outside counsel, and other staff members as needed.
Okay, we've heard the need for our first executive session. Is there a motion to recess into session? Motion from Deputy Mayor. I'll second the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we've completed our discussions in the first executive session. No action has been taken. There is also a need for the second executive session if the city attorney will read.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 15 minutes to discuss data or information relating to financial affairs or trade secrets of one or more corporations as outlined under KSA 75-4319B4. The open meeting will resume in the city council chambers. The following individuals will be necessary to assist the governing body in its deliberations: the city manager, assistant city manager, and any other staff members as needed.
Okay, thank you. You've heard the need for a second session. All those in favor of going into executive session, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are going into the second executive session immediately.
All right, starting now. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
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 Extend?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this could prompt us.
What do you make it to?
I move to go beyond 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, aye. Okay, we'll go past the 10 o'clock. Aye, aye, aye. Okay. Okay, you ready?
We're live. We've been live for...
Oh, I couldn't see it. Sorry. Okay, we've completed our discussions on the second executive session. It is necessary for us to extend past the 10 o'clock normal deadline to go into the third executive session. If the city attorney will read, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion would be to recess into executive session for a time not to exceed 30 minutes to discuss personnel matters involving individual employees as allowed under KSA 75-4319B1. The open meeting will resume in this room in the city council chambers. The following individuals will be necessary to aid the governing body in the discussion: the human resources director and any other staff members as needed.
Okay. All those have heard the need for our third executive session. All those who are ready to go into executive session say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, well. Okay, we have completed our discussions in our third executive session. No action has been taken. No further business is coming before this body. We are adjourned.